Back in action tonight on home ice. They'll host the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. Pregame starts at 6 with Shope and the Bulldog. You can hear all the action right here on WGR. The NFL owners' meetings begin next week down in Florida. The meetings could bring a change to kickoffs in the NFL for the second year in a row. The NFL's competition committee officially proposed a plan to move the spot of touchbacks from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line in hopes of creating better kick return numbers. In order for the proposition to pass, 24 of the owners must agree to the change. Newly signed New York Giants quarterback Russell Wilson had his introductory press conference with the media yesterday where he stated he expects to be the starter for the team in Week 1 of the 2025 season. The Giants still hold the third overall pick in this year's draft, and there's much speculation on whether or not the team will select a quarterback for the future. The men's March Madness bracket gets back underway tonight with 4 games in the Sweet 16. First game of the night tips off at 7:09 between number 2 Alabama and number 6 BYU. You can hear that game on our sister station, the Bet 1520. Following that game, you can also listen to number 1 Duke take on number 4 Arizona on the Bet 1520. That game tips off at 9:39. Also in action tonight, number 1 Florida takes on number 4 Maryland at 7:40, and number 3 Texas Tech takes on number 10 Arkansas at 10:09. Coverage of the NCAA Championship on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. Hey, and happy opening day. Baseball gets started up today. Milwaukee and New York get things going at 3 o'clock. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Jeremy White and Joe DiBiase.
I did have the wonder in my mind, did I have more fun with the Bills during the drought?
You serious?
Get out.
The drought.
Get out.
Look
Leave.
back
Go
on the
home.
drought.
Go home.
The drought was fun.
You're dismissed. It's very fun to watch the Bills lose to Cleveland 6-3.
I mean,
that was really fun. It was really fun to watch Doug Marrone punt in Miami, down 10 points with 6 minutes left. These were all very fun things.
You're listening to Jeremy and Joe on the home of the Bills. WGR Sports Radio 550.
All right, I think I finally, after 9 times we've heard that, I think I've figured out why I thought the drought was more fun. It's not that it was more fun. It's that reminiscing on it is more fun. Is that right?
Well,
like, can you believe how crazy that was? Romo threw how many picks and they lost?
yeah, I don't know. That
When they're good and you look back on it and you can kind of laugh about it.
well, it's easy.
It wasn't great in the moment.
It's easy to look back on,
Yeah, and
especially like on my ride in listening to CBS Sports Radio, and it's like you hear people around the league talk about like the quarterback situation across the league, and you forget. And I think right now we're in this like kind of particularly golden era of quarterbacks because we left what was probably the best era ever of quarterback play in the NFL with, Brady, Manning, Breeze, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, But isn't there like double the amount of quarterbacks at that level now than there was 15 years ago?
Well, they're different, right? They're more mobile than ever. They're more unique. Allen jumps over people. Peyton Manning wasn't doing that. Lamar Jackson outruns people. No one other than Michael Vick was doing that, but he wasn't like an MVP. So, yeah, they're different at least. Are there more of them? I mean,
Mahomes, Allen, Burrow.
Like what we're talking about, like God level, like Hall of Fame type, like automatic Hall of Fame types.
Would we say right now there are?
I think you're going to find that it's not that different, but volume wise.
Yeah, I think there's. Well, maybe it's the middle that's better. I don't know. It feels like this is
now that I could get on board with. The middle of quarterbacking right now, the bar there has come up from where it was before that. Who's the 10th best quarterback in the league? Kyler Murray. What is he, like the 13th best quarterback in the league? Who was that in 2007? Was that Matt Castle or
yeah, right?
Was Jake Plummer that at that point? I could listen to that.
Yeah, I also think there are more. Maybe it's also because the league is in a position where there's a lot of young players.
Yeah.
Like all of the great quarterbacks are under 30. There isn't that like kind of remaining old guy necessarily. Is the remaining old guy Rodgers?
He's trying to be.
He's not good.
He's trying to be.
I mean, he hasn't.
He and Russell Wilson are really trying to be the old guys.
Aaron Rodgers hasn't started a playoff game in 3 years.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Look, let's get into the heavy-hitting topics right off the top here. The state of the league at quarterback.
Well, listen, we got some stuff today. Obviously, Sabres play tonight, but like there's some stuff from yesterday, some carryover. The Dudes on Dudes podcast, which is Julian Edelman and talking about how Diggs is quote still pissed at the Bills, which I don't even know what that means. Anything else good?
We got a lot to get to. We got a Texas guest coming up a little bit
Nice.
later on in the 8:30 segment because I really want to just bombard him with questions about the two receivers, Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond, both speed receivers. We'll get a little baseball preview as today's opening day in the 9 o'clock hour as well. Yeah, lot to get to on today's show. I want to go through the over/under win totals with you across the league and the fact that the Bills. Figure out what you want, everyone. You want them being doubted or not? Because this year, at least the starting point here is they are favored to win the most games in the NFL this season by the over/under total.
Who is?
The Bills are.
Oh,
Are favored to win the most games in the NFL this year.
even with the projected schedule?
Yep. You look at all the teams that have, there's a few teams that have 11.5 wins as their win total, and the Bills are minus 140 on the over, and nobody else is.
Are we back to 2022 again?
Where they were the definitive favorite?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't love that.
I did want to get to that. We can do that right here. It's Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy's off this week. Nate is in today. Sal tomorrow. So that was 2 years ago. They signed Von Miller. It almost felt unanimous, didn't it? That they were the best team in the league, that they were the best roster in the league at least, that they were there are graphics from, remember there was one from the Rich Eisen show before that season where like 5 different analysts, whatever, picked who would win the Super Bowl, and all 5 of them picked the Bills.
Yeah.
Like that even if they are this year not going to be doubted near to the same degree that they were last year, which I wonder if it'll ever be like that again, where they're not the favorite in the division going into the year. And everyone is not everyone, but a lot of people
learned their lesson on that.
Yeah,
one.
the sexy take was, oh, Bills maybe missing the playoffs, huh? Like that was a sexy take before last year. And then they just proved everyone there's no outcome where we're not going to be at the top of the division, at least, and making the playoffs and being about as good as we always are. So this year, what's the reaction so far? It's that they're okay. We're gonna make you more. Well, how much of it's the division too? Because they have the highest win total. They also, as some of these odds get released, we see are the biggest favorite to win their division in the league. So how much of it is just, hey, the other 3 teams in your division kind of stink, and maybe that's why they are, favored to win more games than Kansas City is this year.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because, I guess you mentioned something yesterday that I hadn't necessarily considered in my thought process about this year and how they're, approaching the roster, rebuild because it's a new season, so they're rebuilding things, right? It's not a legitimate rebuild. But where I'm going with this is I hadn't necessarily allowed room to think about how historically efficient the offense was last year and how it almost has to regress a little bit and how you prepare for that type of regression in the offseason. I mean, you can kind of figure out how they're preparing, at least offensively, which is right now you let your number one touchdown receiving wide receiver. I don't know what that means necessarily because
Mac Hollins.
You let go of Mac Hollins. And I don't really know. That's not to me a huge mover. And then Amari Cooper walked as well.
Yeah.
And you replace him with a younger separator. Other than that, maybe we're waiting for that third receiver or the number 5 receiver to be drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round coming up, or 4th round because they don't have a 3rd round pick. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like right now the roster moves or how they've approached this offseason that there's a lot of concern built in, or there's a lot of moves that have been built in that have almost hedged for that fact. That, like, is Josh Allen going to have another single-digit interception season and have the most efficient season in terms of turnovers and sacks ever? You know, I don't tell you I wouldn't necessarily bet against Josh Allen doing that again, but yeah, I mean, Josh Allen had to have an MVP level season to get you to the AFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's what I want to rely on. It's kind of what the Ravens have relied on, and that's why they really haven't gotten over the hump. It's if they have Lamar playing at an MVP level every single game, or else.
Yeah.
And the Bills got away, I'll say this, in acknowledging that they got significant contributions from the traditional running game, which is, I mean, everybody at the station's been talking about for years, is like they can't just solely rely on their run game being Josh Allen and mostly it being off script and designed runs. Like, they got more help, but at the end of the day, like, I think that they need to find ways to win games in January with someone other than their quarterback, and they have not found a way to do that yet.
Right.
Even with Josh playing at an MVP level, the margin for error when you get into the late games in January, the AFC Championship game and even the divisional game, like, that's really where everything else has broken and Josh has sort of maintained this. So it's, is it that they need another offensive weapon, like, a young player, an Isaiah Bond, one of these young fast guys we've been talking about, getting Josh a weapon to help him take the top off of defense. But I don't know that I feel the defense has gotten a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's an interesting part to analyze here, because I think you could ask questions about both. The offense, we know there is a baseline with Allen there that they can't bottom out. And, it's interesting. I have trouble sometimes figuring out how to word how I see their regression from last year to this year with negative plays. Because I often actually put it the way you just did, which is they got away with what they did on offense because they didn't turn the ball over at all, no fumbles at all, right? They went from like week 5 on without fumbling the ball. The running backs didn't, the receivers didn't. And Allen didn't throw interceptions. 6 was his career low. Interception percentage by far was the best of his career, 1.2%. He was at 3.1 the year before that. He went on that crazy streak of not taking a sack. How long did that go for? Wasn't that half the year that Allen didn't take a sack in a game? So getting away with it, it also kind of was the design of their offense, wasn't it? Like, they did. That's why I don't want to fully put it on to luck. I think there will be some regression. I'd still expect them to be one of the top teams in the league.
Too.
Because their offense is kind of geared now to make less mistakes. They throw more screens. It's harder to throw an interception. It's impossible to throw an interception, really, almost, if you're throwing a screen. They do a lot of those. They are running the ball more, and you can't throw interceptions on a run play, right? And if those running backs aren't fumbling, you're not gonna be turning over the ball. Now that might be where the regression is most likely, is the idea that the Bills' backfield and the receivers too, when they're carrying the ball, are gonna go 12 games or whatever it was without fumbling the football. Like, that just seems crazy to think they could repeat that. Allen repeating the level of success he did and not putting the ball in harm's way. And also, there's one thing that I would absolutely count on, which is he's not going to take sacks ever. Like, that is not something that regresses. I think turnovers could. Allen being this good at sack avoidance, combined with how good the line is, they might have some injuries on the line that they haven't had for 2 years because they've been insanely healthy. But Allen's the best quarterback in the league at escaping pressure. Like, that to me is not changing. They will not take that. Those are the negative plays they won't take. So what does all that mean, though? If they go from historically great at not turning the ball over and, one fumble by James Cook and none by Ray Davis and 1 by Dalton Kincaid, 6 picks, and they go to 9 picks, 3 fumbles by James Cook, and then 2 fumbles by other guys. That's regression. It's still probably going to be one of the better units in the league at not, creating negative plays, but it will be regression. And I just still think that there has to be a little bit made up for that in other places. And this is a compliment to their offense that the only place there is improvement to be had is the downfield passing game. That's it. It's the only area of their offense last year that they weren't good at, or great at even, and they were terrible at it. The defense, as you just mentioned, that is the unit that there are bigger question marks about, and there is much more room for improvement. And how would you answer that right now? How much better have they gotten on defense? At this very moment, pre-draft, because they don't have another corner right now.
Yeah.
I did see Rasul Douglas is still working out in Bill shorts.
He is. And that could always solidify, listen, at worst, it feels like if all else fails, they could just run that back. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but it really it doesn't appear. If it was plan A, he would have already been signed. It's probably plan C.
He looked a little old last year.
Yeah, he did. Especially towards the end. He had that injury halfway through the year, missed a couple of games, and then came back.
Yep.
And it just it didn't look the same. Maybe some of that too is the lack of consistency behind him over the top at the safety position too. There was injuries and Bishop in and out of the lineup and Rapp, and he was also injured a bunch. But yeah, and I'm not sure that I looked at this offseason as there needed to be a big move. And everybody, thought about Myles Garrett as this, right? And I never thought that bringing Myles Garrett in solved all of the issues in this defense anyways. I thought he certainly he raises the floor, but I'm not sure that he did a ton, especially on defense in the NFL. I'm not sure he really raised the ceiling of the defense that much. He dramatically increased how bad they could not be. He raised the floor, right? He would have raised the floor significantly.
Yeah.
Does Bosa do that? That's
the tough part about saying that they've improved on defense this offseason, because Bosa's such a wild card. You just don't really know what to expect from him. I don't know if he's going to give them 5 games and be injury-riddled all year, or if he's going to play 14 games and give them 15 sacks. To me, anything within that range is possible with Bosa. If he does give them the more optimistic end of that, he maxes out at what you think he could be. He plays almost the whole year. He misses a game or two. Maybe he plays a game where he's a little bit banged up, but for the most part, he's healthy. And he's the best pass rusher they've had.
Yep.
In a season where he's getting 15 sacks. 14, 15 sacks, all the win rate stuff and pressure rate, all that is, top 15 in the league where he's been when he's been healthy. He's that level of good. What does it do for the rest of the defense? Does the secondary have better production because now they actually have a pass rush that's going to get after quarterbacks more often and quicker? A lot of their sacks over the years have been coverage sacks.
Yeah.
So you would like to think that there could be a trickle-down from Bosa hitting and being someone that could make everything else a little bit easier for the other players on defense.
If there's a trickle-down, to me, it would make more sense that the trickle-down happens at the defensive line level. I'm not sure that it necessarily happens behind the defensive line.
Like for Rousseau, not seeing double teams.
That opens up Ed Oliver to get back to 2023 form, where he had 9.5 sacks, was one of the best interior defensive pass rushers in the league. Then last year, a really slow start, and there was an injury in camp, and I would think that if you got that version of Joey Bosa, I think there's an effect across the defensive line, but this secondary is going to be right now as it stands. And even if, let's just say, for example, the Bills end up really not in a position to get one of the top guys, so they get a guy in the second round, and maybe it's the kid from Ole Miss, Trey Amos, who, I know a lot of people like, or, the kid from East Carolina's gone, and Brandon Morrison's gone. It's okay, well, you end up with a guy that you like. He's young. He's a second-round pick, but that's not necessarily a plug-and-play player on this team. I'm not sure, unless maybe a second-round pick can be a plug-and-play player. I just haven't really seen it yet with this team, and they've never been in a position where they've needed a second-round pick to be a plug-and-play player?
They've done it, I think, only one
Cody
time
Ford?
that I can remember.
Osiris Torrance.
He goes right into guard. He won that job.
He did win the job.
Ryan Bates was
That's
here
right.
and
He
had
won
a
the job.
contract.
It wasn't like they had it's not like the current cornerback situation where you basically don't feel like you have a starter there. And like Brian Bates had started games and you liked his versatility and you signed him to an extension. So like that was a player that was in your future, and then Osiris Torrance changed that future.
Yeah, there's one other. Looking back on their draft history, there's one other second-round pick that was plug and play. Coleman. Coleman was plug and play. He led the team in snaps like every game for the first 2 months of the season. They put him, well, except for the Jaguar game where he was late to a meeting. He was suspended for the first quarter. Coleman went right in.
Yeah.
Plug and play. There wasn't a lot of competition for him.
Kind of a first-round pick.
Sure.
Sure. Like it's kind of
right. You're right. No, you're right. Like a draft value chart would tell you that too. That where the Bills are picking at 30, of course, is closer to 33 than where the Bills are. What's the Bills for second round?
48 and 62.
That was 50 something.
56,
53,
something like that. Yeah.
20 picks later than where Coleman was. So right for middle of the second round or like not the first pick of round 2. Torrance is really the only example. Of someone that just went right in
and
playing 100%.
Yep.
Like, guys have been rotational. James Cook was a second-round pick. He was rotational. Maybe not the beginning as rotational as people wanted, right, because of the fumble. And Cole Bishop wasn't really rotational, right?
No.
Like, some of these guys haven't played much at all other than injury.
So they've, as they enter the draft, with the roster as it stands, will be the biggest job, the biggest uphill battle that Sean McDermott's had in his career and in the defensive backfield.
At the moment, I would agree with you, yeah.
And
they don't, other than Benford, even Johnson. I wonder.
What if Benford gets hurt?
Right, Benford staying healthy is a thing. He leaves with concussions at the end of last year.
Yeah, like what they it's not even that. To me, the primary story is you don't have a cornerback too. The second storyline of that is they really are. It's the least amount of depth I've seen them have at a defensive position.
Yeah.
And they signed the kid from Washington at safety. So maybe the depth is a little more unknown at safety. Because they're going to have Hamlin, who started a lot of games for them. I assume he's going to end up being the backup. I think that they've got Cole Bishop being the starter this year over Hamlin. And then they got the kid from Washington. So maybe their defensive backfield, and I can take safety off the chart. Maybe it's...
They have a guy at each...
They have a high floor, low ceiling at safety.
Yeah, they have a guy at each level where there's going to be probably 3 individuals that more than anybody are going to dictate what level of defense they're about to have. 3 guys that are unknowns, that unknown commodities in that we don't know how good it could be and how bad it could be.
Yeah.
Bishop is one of them. He could be coming in and making mistakes every 4th week.
Yep.
Like he did against Houston, where Nico Collins catches the ball over the top. And those are mistakes the Bill safeties never make. And it's possible that he starts letting those through. It's also possible that he doesn't. A year in the system, he's got it buttoned up.
Yep.
And he's a great athlete. I've mentioned Nick Emenwari a lot, the safety at the end of the first round, who has like a 9.9 RAS score. If you go back and look at the raw athletic score of Cole Bishop, he's like a 9.4.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is a bigger-bodied safety that is fast, like an athlete that could be playing that position. Different type of athlete than they've had at that position. Different than Hamlin for sure, and different than Poyer, right? Maybe Hyde was a great athlete, but he was a little bit smaller. So that's one, and then whoever they draft at corner is 2, and then I think Bosa is 3 because you just don't know what you're going to get. So in the most optimistic sense, Bishop hits as a year 2 player, the rookie is good, and Bosa stays healthy. Then I feel like your defense has significantly improved. But what are your chances of getting all 3 of those things to happen?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely asking a lot. I'll say this though. All right, let me pose this question to you, and then maybe it's something we can discuss on the other side. But like, I think about maybe a group of 3 players and trying to say of the 3, who is the most important that they take the. Let me think of a good example of this. The Christian Benford year 2 step. The James Cook, year 2 step. Who else really had big jumps in year 2?
You got. I mean, really, Cook is the perfect answer for this.
So
yeah, Shakir's.
I'm going to put a third-year player in this, but of these 3 players, which is the most important? Takes that like legitimate step from high draft pick to he's a top 10, top 12 player at his position. Between Bishop, Kincaid, and let's just make it about Bishop and Kincaid. Or Coleman. I was going to put Coleman in there too. Of those 3, who is the most important one to take that I'm here step?
Yeah.
And it's probably Coleman. Or I'm sorry, it's probably Bishop, because it's probably the more important position of those 3, the most important position that they need to have that type of player. But I might argue it's also Kincaid.
Yeah. It's a good question.
They really need
Bishop plays a position that the head coach is like a whisperer of.
The thing that the Bills have been lucky with is they have had players in year 2 and year 3 really take steps. Almost every year really take steps. And the group that could potentially take that step this year feels smaller than in years past.
Yeah. 803-0550 is the phone number. You got a thought on this? Give us a ring on how much do you expect the defense to improve? I want to go through the over-unders a little bit too. If you want to get in on how you feel about the Bills potentially being like the favorite of the league again, they are, at last check, they're tied with the Chiefs and Ravens in Super Bowl odds, right at the top. And the over-under win totals are out, and the Bills are right at the top of the list in the NFL as some of the betting stuff starts to make the rounds as rosters are set in. A lot to get to on today's show. We'll get to the Sabres game tonight, of course. We'll get to what's going on in the chat. They're hotly debating who's got the better hat right now in the first 25 minutes of the segment.
Yours is sweet. Mine's just from a golf course.
Baseball starts today, and Stephen A. Smith wants to fight LeBron James.
Yes.
All things that we're going to get to today.
Dak Prescott getting traded to the Browns?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. It was debunked, I think, already, but it was out there.
It was.
Yeah, let's get to like what that would have
And they also major thing. Did you see they banned the nose wipe.
So I've got written down to get to competition committee rules. I should put in like parentheses, make sure get to the nose wipe. Because of all the rules they're changing, kickoff stuff. Oh, nose wipe.
The nose wipe. Very important.
Get all that coming up. Stay tuned. It's Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy's off today and tomorrow. Back next week when I'll be off. Nate's in today, and this is WGR.
Tonight on home ice, they'll host the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. Pregame starts at 6 with Show Up in the Bulldog. You can hear all the action right here on WGR. NFL owners' meetings get started next week down in Florida. The meetings could bring another change to kickoffs in the NFL for a second year in a row. The competition committee officially proposed a plan to move the spot of touchbacks from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line in hopes of creating better kick return numbers. Newly signed New York Giants quarterback Russell Wilson had his introductory press conference with the media yesterday where he stated he expects to be the starter for the team in Week 1 of the 2025 season. The Giants also added Jameis Winston on a 2-year, $8 million deal this past weekend, adding him to the quarterback room with Russell Wilson. They also still hold the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft, and there's much speculation on whether or not the team will select a quarterback for the future. March Madness gets back underway tonight with the men's bracket starting off the Sweet 16. There's 4 games tonight. First game tips off at 7:09 between number 2 Alabama and number 6 BYU. You can hear that game on our sister station, the Bet 1520. You can also find a game on the Bet 1520 following that game. Number 1 Duke takes on number 4 Arizona at 9:39. Coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with celebrating 90 years of business.
Room. You know that Stephon Diggs, he's got a lot of instances where he's got the mind games with the quarterback, but no one ever second guesses how hard he works, the amount of work that he puts into his craft.
Julian Edelman on the Dudes on Dudes podcast that he does with Rob Gronkowski. It's Joe DiBiase. It's Nate Geary. All right, so that's got you fired up?
I mean, I'm not fired up, but...
So when I read that the first time, the quote, not the clip, I thought, oh, does he know? Is he saying, as a matter of fact, that, Diggs is still mad about something, and then this is going to be, there's going to be more about it? I think he's just saying that, in general. You think he knows that Diggs, is carrying around a grudge with the Bills right now? Or that's why he's in New England, because he wants to fight them in the division?
Yeah, I mean, good luck on that, but yeah, I don't know. It's
I don't think Edelman knows Diggs and is saying he's my boy, and I talked to him yesterday and he told me he's pissed at the Bills still. That's not what I'm reading out of that.
No, but there might be. I mean, I could understand potential motivation for him to want to. I don't know what he would be trying to prove.
Listen, I do think
I don't really know.
We talked about Diggs a lot yesterday. And we got into it. I do expect that, right now, I come from a place of I just don't really care about any of the extra stuff with Diggs. Fitz said this yesterday on Twitter, and I do not think this is going to happen. But there was a question about whether he'll get booed when he comes back from New England, which I think, by the way, is 1,000% yes.
Yes.
That he's going to.
Yeah.
Fitz said, I wouldn't boo him. He's the best receiver I've ever seen in a Bills uniform. Was great while he was here. That's my approach, but I know that's not going to come to fruition. And I also know that when he suits up in that New England uniform, and knowing how he is, even out there on the field, it's going to get fired up, I think, at some point. Think of how think of what he did to New England fans.
Yeah.
When
literally, F you, F you, F you, F you.
Shut the, well, you know what.
Yeah.
Pointed out at New England fans that he's now going to play for, by the way.
Yeah,
and awesome. And did that. Cursed them all out as they beat them in Foxborough. If he scores a touchdown in Buffalo, I'm not saying he'll do that exact same thing, but he's going to want to let you know about it. He also might get into it with, Bills defenders, and then that'll get fired things up. Remember with Jair Alexander? He looked like he wanted to fight him the entire game.
Yeah.
Out of the tunnel, they were screaming at each other. Like that, I don't know who on the Bills is going to be that guy.
Maybe they just trade. Maybe they just go
quiet.
get Jair Alexander to do it. You know, you just trade for him because Diggs is in the division now.
Listen, if you really want to fire up this rivalry, you go trade for Jair Alexander just to do that, just to mess with Diggs. Although he's not going to be covering Diggs.
No, it'll be
Taron
Johnson. It'll be Taron Johnson.
It'll be Taron Johnson.
Yeah,
that's covering him in New England. So I don't know. That's Edelman on it. I think New England is going to be, annoying to a degree pretty quickly again.
Yeah.
Right now, I look at them and go, "Oh, that's a team that's on the rise," and I'm watching them. I'm watching them over here, and at some point soon, they're gonna be excruciatingly annoying again.
I mean, their fans already are. Right now,
right? It's just kind of dormant.
They're No, it's still there. Yeah, no, they're grasping for relevancy.
It's
again.
at least dormant in comparison to when the Bills and the Patriots were fighting for the division and Mac Jones was the New England quarterback. Mm-hmm. Them losing to New England in the win game was unlike anything I've ever seen after. The declaration, what was the Boston media clip?
The trash talk.
The licking of the dog poop on the ground, right? Remember that comment that was made? And then that's what made the perfect game so special, too, is that was the buildup. It was a month of these guys just won't shut up over there.
Yeah.
And then you hammered them 47-10.
Hammered them.
And listen, I could get up for that again because Miami's kind of going away. Do you want a team that's kind of like they're over here, you're better than them, they think they're better than they are, and you like to just kind of pull them in just close enough just to pull the football away from Charlie Brown one more time?
I will say this.
Because that's been Miami. Every time it's been Bills lining up the football. Come on, Dolphins. Come kick the field goal. And then you pull the ball away. And now they're not coming up anymore, I don't think.
No,
they're not coming up to kick the football. Now it's the New England fan that's going to be coming up to kick the football.
But here's what I'll say about your declaration of the Dolphins and them being over. It just kind of feels like that would make this the year they actually I would say they've already put up the best fight they could put up.
Yeah,
they had a 4-game division lead with a month left in the game. With a month left,
it's incredible they did. They blew it against the Titans. Remember that was the moment they blew it against the Will Levis. They had a 2-score lead on Will Levis with like 5 minutes to go, and they couldn't close. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be terrible this year. I just think this is it. Like, this is the year. They've got it. This is the end.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Like, this has to – it kind of has to be for a lot of reasons, just for them to keep who's there.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So I expect New England to become their biggest rival again because I think they're going to be better than the other two divisional teams. And I think Diggs is going to inflame some feelings in the next 3 years that he's there.
Yeah.
If he is there for 3 years. Sorry, second to Kansas City. Biggest division rival.
Biggest division rival, yeah.
Yeah, Kansas City's going to be the number one. 803-0550 is the phone number. If you've got a thought on the Bills, we went through the defense a little bit as we are under a month away from the NFL draft. The tournament gets fired back up tonight, 7 o'clock. Is the NCAA tournament worse than all the others for late start times? Tonight, it's 7 o'clock start, and then I think you have 2 10 o'clock games, as opposed to they could have started the whole window at 6 and got it in by 9, but instead they're starting it an hour later. I'm always annoyed with college basketball the way they do that because national championship is this, right? 9:20 start every year. Super late. Are there more college basketball fans on the West Coast?
There's only one game at 10 o'clock tonight.
There's only one. Okay,
it goes.
There's a 9 o'clock game?
7:09, 7:39, 9:39, and 10:09.
9:39 and 10:39. All right. So they're doing they're trying to get 2 windows is what they're trying to do.
I get it, but
would have preferred a 6:30, 7:30.
Same with opening day baseball. Like everything's 4 o'clock and up today. Like,
yeah, when's the first? There's no 1 o'clock game.
There's It's the 4 o'clock is the first window.
Let's see.
And they're going to compete with college basketball. just is weird.
3:05 is the first game of the day, which is Brewers and Yankees.
3:05, okay.
And then a 3:07 Blue Jays Orioles. And
No
then everything else
reason-
at 4.
No reason there shouldn't be a noon, a 1 o'clock. Like, there should be multiple.
Yeah. They do have some 10 o'clock games tonight. The A's and the Mariners. Where are the A's playing this year? They're not in Oakland.
Yeah, Sacramento.
They're in Sacramento. Right. While they wait for the Vegas ballpark to be
Yeah,
built.
what building are they playing in?
I mean, it's got to be a AAA ballpark, right? It's not going to be. There's no major league park there. So
They are playing at Suter Health Park in West Sacramento,
okay.
home of the Sacramento River Cats. Their
Okay.
AAA affiliate, the Giants AAA affiliate, not even their AAA affiliate.
Okay. I'm sure the River Cats then have been relocated for a couple of years while this is being built.
Yeah, they're playing at this stadium for the next 3 seasons.
Wow.
That's 14,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
For 3. I mean, they're gonna average more fans than they probably did in Oakland. They tanked that whole situation
Good point.
in Oakland, though.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think Sacramento will enjoy that. We enjoyed having the Blue Jays here.
We certainly did.
Like, if I was, half kidding when this came about, but when the Rays,
Yeah, where are the Rays playing?
they're playing at the Yankees Spring Training Stadium, which I'm sure is somewhere in Florida. I don't know where in Florida.
Major League Baseball.
But
man.
when they needed a home because Tropicana Field, the roof got blown off by the hurricane, I'm like, bring them here. I knew that wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen, but
But if the Tampa Bay Rays, a baseball team that no one has a tie to here locally, were to play in Buffalo, like Buffalo would get behind it in a second. And I'm sure Sacramento's going to do the same thing with the A's. I mean, that they might already be an A's, market, Northern California.
It's just crazy to me that Major League Baseball got to a point where a team had to that is moving, of course. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But has to leave playing a Major League stadium to go to these facilities. Like,
I mean,
the Rays, it's emergency declaration. So I get why the Rays are doing what they're doing.
Right.
But there's not really a good excuse for Major League Baseball to have allowed the A's situation to get where it's gotten.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. There've been. I listened. There's a good podcast. Was it Today Explained? Someone did a really good deep dive on the whole A's ownership situation and how it's literally made the plot to Major League. The owner tried to tank the franchise, so that he could go to Major League Baseball and say, "Guys, look how bad this is. Let's go to Vegas."
Yeah.
But he wanted it to be that bad. He made it so bad, though, that they couldn't even stay until they were ready.
Yeah.
They had to get out earlier.
Yeah.
Because everyone saw it.
Right. Like,
the
at least
politicians saw it. The fans saw what he was doing.
it reminds me a little of the Chargers situation.
When they played in the soccer stadium.
Yeah. Which is also just absurd.
I think that soccer stadium is the one that Peterman threw 5 interceptions in.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't?
Yeah, pretty sure.
803-0550 is the phone number. Stephen A. Smith wants to fight LeBron James. Some funny audio on that. LeBron then, by the way, answered with a game-winning shot, game-winning tip at the buzzer yesterday. On the Bills, being kind of the favorite in the league right now, I think you could, it's very close, but I think you could say that. Get to that coming up at 7 o'clock. Some guests a little bit later on the draft and on baseball as well. So have a fun day here on WGR. the fight against cancer, Ride with Bulldog and WGR's Ride for Roswell team. I'll be doing that too on Saturday, June 28th. Once you join the team, you will receive an email. You can pick up your team t-shirt and water bottle at Tom's Pro Bikes on Walden Avenue in Lancaster. If you're not a rider, you could still support the cause by donating to our team. Help us reach our goal. Visit WGR550.com for details. Sabres and Penguins tonight at KeyBank Center. Crosby in town. A lot of Penguins fans, though, tonight, because their season's been horrific.
I would be surprised.
Well, what percentage, because Pittsburgh often fills up the building, how much of that, though, is they travel well versus there are a lot of Penguins fans here?
I think they travel well.
Okay.
And maybe from across the border. There being Canadian fans up north.
Right. Especially, Crosby fans from across the border.
Yep.
That's why they're Pittsburgh fans.
100%.
They come down from southern Ontario.
That would make more sense than there being a lot of Pittsburgh fans locally.
Not that Pittsburgh's a bad drive.
No.
It's been 2 years since I made that drive. 3 hours?
Yeah, maybe on the nose.
I gotta get a reason to get back to Pittsburgh. The ballpark, that's a reason.
Sure. Concerts.
Yep. The ballpark, is... I've been to concerts there. I like the concert scene there. The ballpark, though... I've not met a person that's been to that ballpark that doesn't tell me, like, if you're gonna... Your next major league ballpark should be Pittsburgh.
And yet...
And try to line it up with when Paul Skeens is pitching.
And it's like also, but just like, and yet it is that franchise spends as little money as anyone, and they just have like this perfect park. It's a great market for baseball.
Yep.
And they spend no money.
Mm-hmm.
They have the most electric player in Major League Baseball who is going to sign, what, a $400 million contract with the Dodgers in 3 years?
That does kind of feel how baseball is right now.
Yeah. It sucks.
Everyone is the Dodgers farm team. Yeah.
It sucks.
All right, maybe this will be the year I get to Pittsburgh. I'm more, every year that passes, I'm more intrigued by the idea of just checking out ballparks. Yankee Stadium, Fenway. Yankee Stadium should have been the first one I mentioned. Because actually, I feel like I hear mixed opinions about that.
I don't really like the new Yankee
Fenway.
Stadium. Yep.
Wrigley.
So
the classic ballparks, especially.
I have a group of buddies that they've been doing these baseball trips for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I started going last year. We went to Philly last year.
Okay.
Philly Stadium's super cool.
Yeah.
There's a casino right down the street.
Okay.
It's kind of like a similar setup to like where the arena is downtown in Buffalo.
Yeah.
You kind of have stuff to do right around it. It's great. This year, I think we're doing Pittsburgh.
Okay. Nice.
So.
Nice.
Boston the year prior. Baltimore was on. We were thinking about doing Baltimore and Washington this year.
Baltimore. I've done Washington actually. I've been to Toronto and DC. Just coincidentally, DC. Camden Yards though in Baltimore.
That's on my list.
Yeah, me too. 803-0550 is the phone number. The Bills are kind of the favorites in the division. Well, of course, in the division. In the league, if you look at some win totals, I want to play around with that when we come back. If you got a thought on our earlier conversation about how much did the defense get better? We all agreed their defense needed to get better. They constantly let the team down in the playoffs, especially when they play Kansas City. Are they better set up with the additions they made? Let us know what you think. It's Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary here on WGR.
Good morning. The Buffalo Sabres back in action tonight, taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins at 7 o'clock. Pregame will start at 6 o'clock with Chopin Bulldog. You can hear all the action right here on WGR. NFL owners' meetings begin next week down in Florida. The meetings could bring more changes to the NFL kickoffs for a second year in a row. The NFL's competition committee officially proposed a plan to move the spot of touchbacks from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line in hopes of creating better kick return numbers. In order for the proposition to pass, 24 of the owners of the league around the league have to agree to the change. Newly signed Giants quarterback Russell Wilson had his introductory press conference yesterday with the media, and he stated that he expects to be the starter for the team in Week 1 of the 2025 season. The other members of the quarterback room for the Giants include Tommy DeVito and Jameis Winston at this time. The Giants do still hold the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft, and there's much speculation on whether or not the team will draft a quarterback for the future. Men's March Madness gets back underway tonight with 4 games in the Sweet 16. The first of the night tips off at 7:09 between number 2 Alabama and number 6 BYU. You can hear that game on our sister station, the Bet 1520. Also tonight on the Bet 1520, following that game, you can listen to number 1 Duke take on number 4 Arizona. That game tips off at 9:39. Later in action tonight, too, number 1 Florida takes on number 4 Maryland at 7:39, and number 3 Texas Tech takes on number 10 Arkansas at 10:09. Coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. And happy opening day in baseball. Things get underway today with the Brewers and the Yankees at 3 o'clock. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet is celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
When I watch Hairston's tape, he's a guy that not only can cover in man-to-man situations, but he's willing to go hit you. And, I mean, that's something that you don't see a lot. And I know the Bills are big on their corners being able to tackle, and I think that's important. And he does it. He's willing to do it. And you can see here, that's closing speed, makeup speed, and all corners have to have that. He plays with a swagger. He plays with an attitude, and I think he'd be a nice addition to their team.
Pete Prisco on Maxwell Hairston, the corner from Kentucky. I had to get the first name again from Josh right before we went on because I was about to say Chris Hairston. Remember Chris Hairston?
I remember Chris Hairston.
Former Bills tackle. Maxwell Hairston, though, is a very real option for the Bills at 30. He's often going in the back half of the first round, corner from Kentucky. Seen him mocked to the Bills a few times, Prisco being one of them. Good morning, it's Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy is off this week. Nate Geary is in. And to get another, mild day, I would say. Pretty chilly, though, still, as we roll through the rest of the week. I'm going to Charlotte next week, so can't imagine it's not warmer there, but...
It's got to be warmer there, yeah.
I mean, you never know. In February, we talked to Joe Marino, and it was 20 degrees there, and it was 20 degrees here, so hoping it's a little bit warmer. Get some golfing next week. 803-0550 is the phone number. Some stuff to get to around sports, including, of course, the Sabre game tonight and college basketball, baseball, a lot happening today. What happened yesterday happened. More what was released was the over-under win totals in the NFL. And as I've mentioned before in the 6 o'clock hour, the Bills kind of have the highest total. There are 4 teams with 11.5 wins. And their over is the highest odds, minus 140. Mm-hmm. And everyone else is about even. So basically that is a very slight expectation that the Bills will have the most wins this year in the NFL. That they're the most likely to go over 11.5 in the league is really what that means. So... How does that hit you? Does that hit you as the schedule? The schedule is not easy.
No.
There's the schedule. There's the division.
Difficult.
There's what it says about those other teams, if anything. That like the Chiefs maybe are the biggest part of this. That is interesting to me. Not just that the Bills would be favored to win 12 games more than Kansas City would this year, but the Chiefs' Super Bowl odds are the exact same as the Bills are.
Well, wouldn't you say though too that their division looks like it could be the best it's been since Mahomes has been there.
That was one of the things I wanted to get to. I'm now very hesitant to just assume the AFC West is going to compete with Kansas City because I've been fooled by that before.
Yeah, they literally just don't. They just don't compete.
Right. Was it 2 years ago or was it 3 years ago? The big offseason where Russell Wilson got traded to Denver.
Yep.
And Devontae Adams got traded to the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Carr was still there.
Yep.
And Herbert had just broke out for the Chargers. And I convinced myself, like many did, that, okay.
That's a division.
You might have said the Chiefs were going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, it might be the best division in football, you're thinking.
Yeah. And then it just didn't happen at all.
No. In fact, the Chargers were bad. The Raiders were bad. Raiders were really bad. And then they end up literally firing their coach halfway through the season,
right.
McDaniels. And then, who was the other? The Chargers. And then, the Broncos just imploded.
Was Anthony Lynn still the Chargers coach?
No, it was Stanley? Staley?
Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
That was the reason I liked the Chargers, too, is they thought they were going to be like this aggressive fourth down
super
team.
Aggressive,
and then he became the biggest chicken in the league and never went for a fourth down again.
He just got roasted on Twitter for too long, and he turned heel.
Yeah, his owner probably called him into the office, too.
Yeah, you got to stop going for it on fourth down.
Yeah. But, do the Bills deserve to be on an even playing field, even with Kansas City and these marks?
Sure.
Because it is... They lost to them a fourth time in the postseason, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'd like to postpone Bills-Chiefs games in regular season from now on.
I agree with that. I'm going to want that game as early as possible just to get it out of the way, not to assume that it means much of anything. But
I tried to warn people last year in the regular season.
Yeah.
I tried to tell all of you.
I'm kind of stuck in, I haven't really thought about the Chief game in a while.
The playoffs?
Yeah. The playoff game. It just, I don't know. It hasn't been like 13 seconds to me either of the last 2 years. If 13 seconds
didn't happen, last year would have felt worse.
Yes. Is that what's happening with me personally? That, to me, it's just, okay, line up and go again. That's kind of been my attitude.
Yeah.
Line up and go again because there's really nothing else you could do, and there's really nothing else I would expect them to do, right? I don't expect them to fire Sean McDermott.
No.
I know there is a portion of the fan base that is like, okay, you lost to Kansas City again. Come on. Time to move on. Although, we don't really hear from them very often this offseason. Kind of surprised by that.
They got close. It's because it was so close.
I think the calls, maybe the group that we think, is it out there? That, hey, you've lost 4 times to Kansas City. 4 times all you get. 5 times all you get. How many times is all you get? How many times can you lose to them before I'm actually going to do something? For me, I'm not there.
No,
I'm at line up and do it again. But that was not the 13-second offseason. The 13-second offseason was all about analyzing every facet, every micro piece of the game. Why did I lose? The coaching decisions at the end. Why couldn't I get a pass rush? What do I got to do on that front? Von Miller, let's go get him. And this offseason, we're not really doing that. The game happened, and we could have callbacks to how it happened.
Because they got crushed?
But they didn't get crushed. They lost but the Chiefs got crushed.
Yeah, isn't that why? Had they won the...
But what does that mean to the Bills part of it?
They lost the Super Bowl when they beat the Bills in 21, too, didn't they?
They lost to Cincinnati in the AFC Championship.
Yes, that's right. 13 seconds
after 13 seconds. They lost to Kansas. They lost to Cincinnati.
I guess that wouldn't make sense then, because if they lost then too, it's not.
But they didn't get smoked.
They did not get smoked.
They didn't get smoked. They lost in overtime.
But you would think that because they got smoked, people would be more upset. Because even Deion Dawkins, we would have put up a better fight than that. And maybe they would have. I'm not sure.
I don't know what to do with the Chiefs from this year. When I was on with Mike Shope earlier in the week doing AFC reverse power rankings, I tried to put the Chiefs at 4. But can I have it both ways? I said this after they lost this playoff game, that as long as they meet in the playoffs, I will believe that Kansas City is going to have a significant coaching advantage in that game. How can I not? They always have something, and they always have things ready to go that you haven't seen, right? Greg Rousseau has spoke to that. Other Bills have that. There are looks that Kansas City is going to give you in the biggest moment that they are not going to show you in the regular season. And I'm sure the Bills do their own element of that.
But it's definitely not to the same extent.
No. But on the other, to finish the point out, I also kind of think, I want to believe that Kansas City losing like that in the Super Bowl, getting smoked, and really not playing well against a bad Houston team. Houston was not good at the end of that season.
No.
And Kansas City struggled with them at home in the playoffs. I want to take all those results around the Bills game and believe that, oh no, all of that noise that they're not as good as their record during the regular season, no, that was right. That was accurate. And that got exposed when they played a legitimately amazing team in the Super Bowl. The Bills game is just, they just know how to play the Bills.
Though, yeah, to a certain extent, I agree. But I would think a bigger factor that I'm not sure, I know we haven't really had time to talk about here is, like, for whatever reason, Kansas City seemingly plays their absolute best game every time in the playoffs against the Bills. It's the most consistent they seem to be. And maybe it's the matchup. They own them. There's psychological aspects to it. But, like, they went from probably playing the best game of their season of all 18 games they played against the Bills in the AFC Championship game to the worst game that they've played.
Yeah.
In a 2-week span, going from their best performance to their worst. The Bills just have not been able to catch Kansas City in the playoffs, not at the top of their game. Like 2 years ago when they won in the regular season, they're neck and neck, and Kansas City makes a mistake.
Right.
Kadarius Toney is offsides. And in the playoffs, they basically are perfect. They have one fumble in that game that keeps the Bills in the game.
Yeah.
But otherwise, that was very close to being en route to a blowout.
Right.
And everybody talks about the Diggs drop and everything and the missed field goal, but
little mistakes though.
That was
the Hamlin fake punt.
Right. And so I know we talk a lot about a lot of these situations in these previous games, but it's just, and we always talk about a little bit about like luck and the ball bouncing in direction. The Bills got the bounces the week before at home against Baltimore. They did not get them against Kansas City. So it's a little bit of Kansas City's always playing their best game against the Bills. And the Bills really have not played their best game against Kansas City in the playoffs. They have in the regular season.
Their offense did one time. And they lost anyway.
Yeah.
That's what makes that one game obviously far more frustrating than all the others. Is you felt like that your quarterback and your offense that was their A+ effort. And you still couldn't get it.
The big
because you had an F on defense.
Like the big conversation after the game was, well, they've got to invest in defense. Their defense keeps falling short. Mm-hmm. And yet the week before their defense won them the game.
Right.
Against the MVP, runner up.
Yeah.
And one of the best offenses ever.
I guess
completely befuddled that offense.
Why I bring this up too, and I like this conversation we're having. I know it's going out on a limb and just throwing, like, go ahead, throw whatever you want at me because I'm the court jester that is again gonna doubt the Kansas City Chiefs. But I can't escape the feeling that they weren't actually that great last year. We all know how lucky they got in so many games, right? We could go down the list. The blocked field goal, the Aiden O'Connell getting hit with a snap in the face and the ball hitting the ground, and the penalty that they get on 4th and 16 or whatever it was against Cincinnati earlier in the season. Just break after break after break. Every game had something. And I couldn't stand it. It was nuts. We all knew they weren't as good as their record. They might have still been a 10-win team. I'm not saying they deserve to be 8-10 or 8-9, whatever the math is now. But they were not 15-1 good. 16-1 good. They were not. So then they go to the playoffs, a Houston team that had been struggling a ton down the stretch. They struggle with them. Then they play the Bills. And the Bills is always like the anomaly here. The Bills is like you almost got to put them over here because it's just different every time they play.
Yeah.
Even the year prior, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl with a historic run of defense in the playoffs. Their offense struggled in every one of those playoff games, including the Super Bowl and especially including the AFC Championship game. What was the one game they didn't struggle? The Bills.
Yeah.
Because that game is just always a little different. Then they go to this Super Bowl. when all year I'd been thinking they're not as good as their record. Then they go and play a legitimately great team. First time in a while. They got smoked. And now, let's look at their offseason. And this is where, you sound like a fool for wanting to bet against them again. But Kevin Cole, from his account, former PFF guy, he is now with, who's Kevin Cole with now? Kevin Cole, who we have on the show a lot. Unexpected points. Data scientist for unexpected points. He has his improvement index. He puts into all the expected points. How much did a team add and subtract in the offseason? And no surprise, New England's at the top because they just had $1 million to spend, right? So New England's number one. By the way, the Bills, of any of the playoff teams from last year, he actually has improving almost the most. And part of it is so what he factors in is your offseason roster moves and then your draft capital. And the Bills have a lot of draft capital.
Have good draft capital, yeah.
So I think that's why they're getting a nice mark here. They're in the positive. The Bills improvement index, +7 by his mark or whatever. The Kansas City Chiefs are dead last as losing the most. Now, I don't really know why that is. Is that Joe Thuney being traded away? And that they didn't really add anything. Yeah. So I've got a team last year that I thought was flawed, that was getting lucky along the way, that got exposed in the Super Bowl. I'm not telling you the Bills will beat them, because I think they have their number. But when it comes to who's going to win more games, are they going to be challenged in their division? Are they going to be playing every playoff game at home again? They lost their best offensive lineman.
Voluntarily, by the way.
On a line that already wasn't very good. And here's their offseason. Signing Gardner Minshew. Signing Bailey Zappi, re-signing Kareem Hunt, signing Elijah Mitchell, a backup running back, re-signing Marquise Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. Anything impress you so far? They signed Jalen Moore, an offensive tackle from the Niners, 2 years, $30 million. I don't know much about that player other than the instant reaction from everybody on Twitter was, that's not a good player that you're getting for $15 million a year. They kept Trey Smith. That was big for them. Guard, one of the better guards in the league, cost them a lot of money. Non-exclusive tag, $23 million. Trey Smith, they keep him. They keep Charles Omenihu. They re-sign Nick Bolton, and they re-sign Matt Araiza. That's their offseason. That's it. There's no significant ad anywhere on that offseason. There's not even a Bosa signing. There's not even a Josh Palmer signing. And maybe they're saving for something. Maybe they're going all in on just draft picks and they're going to bring in another rookie class and try to hit on them all, and that'll work. But I've got a team that I thought was not as good as their record last year, and they are having an offseason where just not much is happening. So maybe I'm a fool for doubting the Chiefs again. To what extent, though, is the question, right? How much can you doubt them where it doesn't sound nuts? And for me, that is being challenged in their own division and maybe being like a 4 seed instead of a 1 seed for the first time in 7 years. I think that is completely realistic for the Chiefs this year. That's what the roster speaks to me. Kelsey is getting older, and it doesn't mean I'll pick them to lose to the Bills in a playoff game, but I would pick them to have fewer wins. I would pick them to finally not get all these breaks when it comes down to the end of it. But again, what really matters is would you pick them to beat the Bills in the playoffs?
I don't know how you don't.
It's the whole story.
There is very much a psychological advantage that they have, and it's gotten to a point where you feel like it's almost like you can't overcome it. That sucks. Like, you definitely don't want to feel.
Well, are they doing anything you think this offseason that is geared specifically towards that? Like they're
Kansas City?
Yeah, they're getting more versatile on defense, right? Like, are they trying to show, even for a matchup like that, doesn't have to just be for the Chiefs, for everybody, to be more multi-dimensional? Michael Hoyt is a part of this, right? Like, the guy's, you have no idea where that guy's going to line up play to play. They are bringing in, they're going to have more athletic traits at safety. Bishop starting, and then Derek Forrest, who's a big athlete, who's going to be playing behind him, probably only in a depth role. So we'll see. The draft would have to kind of go along with that. Dorian Williams and Matt Milano both being healthy, I mean, they'll have the opportunity to go to 3 linebacker sets more than they ever have before.
Yep.
They'll have the personnel to do it. So, I don't know. Like, I wonder how different they'll look on defense. It's all about the defense.
Yes.
When it comes to changes and how you play the Chiefs. I think a lot of it is the defense. The defense is the thing that's let them down every single one of these games. And listen, Sean McDermott during this offseason, like what is he going to bed, what is keeping him up awake at night? It's got to be his defense not
missing
performing against that team in the postseason. And I got to believe for how crazy a competitor he is as a coach that he is just constantly trying to think of like, okay, what should I be doing differently? That's what I would be doing. For my defense constantly getting lit up by that same team over and over in that spot, I'd be obsessed with figuring out how I could do things differently to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that is the case. It's hard to... It's hard to, when you look at the grand scheme of things, when you feel you're so close, which is, I feel they've been really close. So I would assume they also feel that they're very close. And it's sort of like, and yet it hasn't really mattered.
Yeah.
And the regular season success hasn't mattered. And now the regular season success is almost a bad thing. Because now it's a joke. Now, it's all right, we'll beat them in the regular season, but when they get to the playoffs, which, again, it's like last year, I remember in the week leading up to the Chiefs game, I kept saying this game does not matter. Everyone's like, of course it matters.
The regular season
They're
game.
undefeated,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Like, this game doesn't matter at all. Mm-hmm. I don't care about it. Mm-hmm. They could lose by 100 or win by 100. I don't care. And everyone's like, it's the Chiefs. It'll always matter. And I was like, I don't think you could beat this team twice in a row. So I don't care. I wish that this game got postponed or canceled.
Or you want them to lose so that...
Yeah, lose.
The day they lose to Kansas City in the regular season, everyone's going to believe that's the year they beat them in the playoffs.
Maybe.
Right?
I would have a better... At least it would be going against what we've normally seen.
You're going to host the overtime show on one of these Chief regular season games that the Bills lose, and every call you're going to get is going to be, guys, I think this is the year they're going to beat them in the postseason. The roles are reversed here. That game, can I tell you why that game did end up mattering?
Why?
Because
1 seed?
They might have gone undefeated.
Yeah, they might have.
It would have been
probably
all about
actually.
It would have been all about their chase of, because they didn't try in the final game of the year. So if they had, they would have been going for it. So the Bills did stop that in its tracks.
True.
But right, for their own sake, it didn't really end up mattering all that much. The last thing I'll say about this, if you want to get in on it, 803-0550 is the number. The last thing I'll say about this, they've been close, but this is easier said than done. It might sound impossible. My bar is not playing close to Kansas City and hoping that you're going to get the breaks to go your way. The Eagles kind of prove something to me, like what I really want. Of course, this is not saying anything. I feel like the Bills need to play like we need to beat them by 2 scores.
Yeah.
Because from my vantage point, any close game, as I kind of let off with here, I'm going to believe that Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are going to have the advantage. I don't want it to come down to 2-3 plays. Because every time it comes down to 1 or 2 plays,
they're getting the best of you.
I believe they're going to have the advantage. They're going to know the plays. They're going to have something ready. And I don't want it to come down to 1 or 2 plays. I need to be up by 10. That's why when Bean said this, and a lot of others did at the end of the season, hey, Josh Allen down, what were the Bills down? 3 or 4? Or were they down? Final
2.
drive.
No,
they needed more than the field goal. Then you see this again. Like if this were the 13-second game, we would know every play.
Wasn't it 1?
The final drive, the Kincaid drop.
I'm blacked out on it.
Whatever it was Allen with the ball down. Whatever 6, 5, 4, whatever they were down. I'll take that every time. I'm a no on that. I am not taking anything against that team unless I'm up 10.
32-29.
Okay, they're down 3.
Yeah.
Allen with the ball down 3 against Kansas City with a couple of minutes to go. I'm telling you, I'm not taking that because I need the lead. I need the lead because I think they're going to have the coaching advantage. It's
the regular season.
Your quarterback can be as good as you want. When that play call comes at him that is impossible to prepare for on that 4th down, He almost pulls it out of the bunny out of the hat, which
Regular
was
season's the script.
And the game ends.
Up 3 with a fourth and short in the red zone to go up 2 scores.
Yeah.
That's the script.
Yeah.
That's
what I need.
They pulled it out too quick. By the way, we have to go to break, but
yes,
Matt Collins led the Bills in receiving in that playoff game.
Against Kansas City?
Yeah.
He had that awesome touch. It was the over-the-top touchdown, like down the seam.
But
he kind of caught it over the shoulder.
That's got to be different, I think.
Yes, it does. The last play, the most important third down play call of the year needs to not be a screen pass to a guy that has no yak ability, which was the Amari Cooper play at the end. 803-0550 is the phone number if you want to get in on the Chiefs. We'll go through some of these over-unders, too. I'm going to have Nate pick some of them. Over-unders in the league. There's some low ones. The Giants and the Browns are getting super low totals to start the year, at least from some of these sports books. 803-0550 is the phone number. Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, you're listening to WGR.
The Buffalo Sabres are back in action tonight, taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins on home ice at 7 o'clock. Pregame will start at 6 with Schopp and Bulldog. You can hear all the action right here on WGR. NFL owners' meetings just under a week away. They'll start next week down in Florida. The meetings could bring another change to kickoffs in the NFL for a second year in a row. The league is talking about moving the spot of touchbacks from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line in hopes of creating better kick return numbers. Newly signed New York Giants quarterback Russell Wilson spoke to the media yesterday at his introductory press conference. He said he expects to start with the team in week 1 of the 2025 season. Also in the quarterback room around him are Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito. The Giants also still hold the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft, and there's much speculation on if they'll draft a quarterback or not. Men's March Madness gets back underway tonight. 4 games in the Sweet 16. 2 games you can listen to on our sister station, the Bet 1520. The first being number 2 Alabama taking on number 6 BYU at 7:09, and later tonight at 9:39, number 1 Duke takes on number 4 Arizona. Also later tonight, number 4 Florida takes on number 1 Florida takes on number 4 Maryland, and number 3 Texas Tech takes on number 10 Arkansas. Complete coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business.
Abdul Carter's going to go before the New England Patriots pick at 4. It'd be an upset right now if Abdul Carter made his way to number 4. I would handicap Abdul Carter right now as the likely pick at number 2 today. We reserve the right to change our mind. A lot of things change, but the way this is shaking out to me, it looks like he's tracking to be a Brown, and let's see how it plays out.
Adam Schefter. Abdul Carter to the Browns. Schefter's just doing his job, so I can't be too mad. But
right,
I don't want to know until draft day.
Yes, I agree. I'm not interested to know until draft day.
And here's Schefter with the second pick, the Browns are taking Abdul Carter. Basically,
yeah.
If you believe him, smokescreen season.
Think I probably don't.
Why would I heard the afternoon guys talking about this yesterday? Sal was on with Mike Schopp. Could the Titans be smoke screening everybody about, they sent everybody to that pro day.
Mm-hmm.
The cleaning staff, the cafeteria, everybody went to go see this guy, Cam Ward, at his pro day in Miami. So could they be smoke screening? I guess why would they be smoke screening is a question. Because you're at number 1. There's nobody in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be smoke screening because you want somebody to come and trade up with you. If you wanted to do that, you wouldn't tell everybody, or you wouldn't make it seem like you really want them, right? You would want people to know, hey, we like him, but we're willing to move out. If you're like, hey, we love this guy, this is going to be the pick. Yeah. Everyone's going to say, well, okay, well then let's start calling other people. They're not going to move out.
Maybe would they? Yeah, if they wanted to trade down. Let's say they want to get the most out of the Giants as possible, or the Browns. Because who do they want? They want Cam Ward, right? They need young quarterback. The Browns especially. Maybe this is about the Browns. They need a young quarterback, and Tennessee knows that. So, yeah, but you could do it another way. You could just say, well, we'll just trade with the Giants then. You could hold leverage over Cleveland in that way. So I guess your smokescreen could be, well, you better give us all of this because we do like him and we'll take him. You're not getting him at number 2. And Cleveland might be trying to call their bluff. No, we're good sitting here at 2. And you're Schefter. They'll take Abdul Carter. Could be mind games just between the Titans and the Browns, but I still expect that it's going to be Ward at number 1. I guess we'll see about whether Schefter's right about Carter being the second pick. 803-0550 is the phone number. The draft is under 1 month away. There are some rule competition committee stuff that's up for the league owners meetings next week. Do you care at all about the kickoff change from the 30 to the 35-yard line? I mean, it, in theory, should increase returns.
I guess.
You're not going to want to sign up for every kickoff, the other team's going to start at the 35. 35 is pretty good field position.
It's basically a first down.
yard-
It's first down and change until Brandon Aubrey, right? Is that his name?
Brandon Aubrey, the Cowboys kicker?
Yeah, until he's in field goal range. So it seems kind of silly.
Right. Which is why
Why do they want kickoffs so bad?
It's a good question. Because it seemed like we were very close to them just being rid of it altogether. Right? Like no kickoffs, every team starts at the 25-yard line. That's your starting position. We don't need kickoffs at all. And instead they've made an effort here. They're trying to figure out how do we keep kickoffs in the game and how do we get the returns to stay up. So last year, some of the numbers on this are that it went up. There were the amount of kickoffs with the new dynamic kick return rules, but it didn't go up a ton. It went up some, but not like not as much as they wanted, clearly, because now they're looking at making an additional change. I feel like if they make this change, it will result in a lot more kickoffs. Last year, if you look at some of the averages of all these teams, almost everybody was about where the touchback is at. 27-yard return was the average last year in the NFL, a 27-yard kick return. So if you're getting the ball at the 27, then what do you really do? It's a difference of 1 or 2 yards.
Yeah.
At that point, you might just say, or a lot of teams said, yeah, we're not really worried about taking on the risk of this. We don't need to risk them returning it for a touchdown. Let's just kick it out of the back of the end zone. What, it's 2 yards? We don't care. We don't want the touchdown risk. But now, if you start to make it a 10-yard difference, like, oh, they got to get a whole new set of downs based on the averages here if we kick it off to them. So we should kick it off into the end zone, not kick it out of the back. So I feel like this is going to pass, and they're probably going to get the result that they want. The Bills are maybe already planning for it. Is that why they brought Laviska Shenault in?
Oh, I forgot they've got Laviska Shenault.
They signed Laviska Shenault.
He's the 5th receiver right now.
Yeah, he is. But again, isn't he kind of here to be a returner? Well,
maybe.
Again, this is part of the rule point. How much are they going to prioritize kick return? Because they do have Brandon Codrington.
Yep.
And he was great last year.
And then he became inactive. So
he did, but that was he did.
He wasn't usable as a defender.
Yeah.
At least I think Shenault, if you have him on the roster, he's probably usable as a wide receiver.
He's at least like a gadget guy that you can give a couple of snaps to over the course of a game, depth at the position. Yeah, that's probably right. But I'm imagining like Shenault and Codrington back for the kick return.
Yeah, I think
one on each side.
I wouldn't Daquan Hardy. I wouldn't rule him out. I mean, he was one of the last guys cut.
Yep.
Made it to the practice squad. He flashed a little in preseason as a defender, as a slot defender. They obviously have Taron Johnson, so like that's not really a need for them. But like that represents a guy that could also. I mean, they didn't get Codrington until he didn't play in the preseason for him. They traded for him at cutdown day.
Yeah, right.
So
they just put him right in week 1 and just go.
And it was good. He was good from then on. But it was weird though that like when the game started to really matter, he was out of the lineup healthy.
Yeah. The other rule changes that are on the table, the tush push again, which I feel like might be favored to not pass. The tush push being banned at least. And then there's this nose wipe thing.
Yeah, it's absurd.
The NFL has made it illegal now to do a nose wipe celebration that CeeDee Lamb did, apparently, last year. You can't wipe your nose.
Sexually suggestive.
They're No Fun League. Mm-hmm. This is part of the No Fun League. We're going back on all celebrations. They ruled out a lot last year. This is all the fault of Giants owner John Mara. 1,000%. He was behind the last round of, hey, we're going to really crack down on celebrations here. That was a John Mara baby to do that. And, hey, Lamb's in the division. I wonder if he actually did it against the Giants. Should look that up. Because if that happened, guarantee you that's where all this started. So no nose wipe celebrations going forward. What will they ban next? They penalized. Remember when Allen got penalized for pointing at the Bengal when he walked into the end zone? That was a penalty.
Yep.
Too much taunting penalties in sports in general. 803-0550 is the phone number. Worst Call Wednesday when we come back, featuring Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James, who have a beef.
But he wanted to
right
clarify his beef. He wouldn't swing on LeBron unless he slapped him in the face first. He wanted to clarify that. He's like, he was taken out of context.
Yeah. So we'll play that sound for you. He also wanted to clarify that he does not wear tighty whities. That's what yesterday in the world of sports media became.
I miss
after
when
we went off the air at 10 o'clock.
I miss secrets. Like when people had secrets.
Yeah.
Everything's
out in the open now.
We know too much about people. Go back to secrets.
803-0550. It's Jeremy and Joe. Nate's in. Worst Call Wednesday when we come back here on WGR. Worst Call Wednesday on a Thursday. We're going to make it up. That's coming next.
And had I done something, what do y'all want me to do? You want me to act? You want this to be a reincarnation of Chris Rock and Will Smith? And let me state for the record that while we bring up that, let me assure you it wouldn't have gone down like that. I would have gotten my ass kicked because had that man put his hands on me, I would have immediately swung on him. Immediately.
Stephen A. Smith saying that if LeBron James had put his hands on him, he would have swung on him. We're going to make that our worst call of the week. The worst call that you can make is skipping your recommended cancer screenings. To learn more about potentially life-saving screening recommendations and guidelines, be sure to visit roswellpark.org/screening. I think LeBron is giving Stephen A., though, exactly what Stephen A. wants. Which is,
no doubt,
a beef with LeBron James. It's going to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
Attention, clicks, downloads.
Yeah.
Just giving Stephen A. what he wants. Maybe LeBron doesn't care.
Probably not. LeBron's LeBron. I mean,
well, because his problem, the original, he approached Stephen A. at one of these games, the Laker games, because he didn't like how Stephen A. was talking about his son. Which, listen, you kind of open yourself up to that.
You open that bag of worms.
He's in the NBA.
Right.
You know, like, you wanted him in the NBA, you wanted to play with him, like, that's one of the consequences, is a guy like Stephen A. Smith is going to criticize him a ton because he probably shouldn't be in the league. He did score 17 points last week, but now LeBron's just like going after him. He posted on Instagram like a boxing thing yesterday after he had a buzzer beater at the end against the Pacers, tipped it in to win, and then immediately all the jokes are being made about Stephen A.
Yeah, I'm not listen. Like, I've never really been a big fan of Stephen A. But
no, me neither.
The shtick has gotten. I mean, he just got paid insane money too.
It's
$100 million.
What was that deal? Was it $100 million?
Yeah,
I saw it was AJ Brown money. That's how I saw it put into context.
Cost really good content creators jobs.
Yeah,
because they had to get rid of people in order to pay him $100 million.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just so he can try to fight LeBron James. Apparently, How old is he anyway? Like, obviously LeBron, you know. They're not going to fight.
No,
LeBron is 6'8", 250.
I would be open to it. I would watch it.
Stephen A. is 57.
He's 57?
Really? 57? He looks pretty good for 57.
I would
take it back. Maybe he's an athlete.
Early 40s.
I think I knew he was at least late 40s, early 50s, but I'm...
He's as old as my dad.
57. Yeah. That's pretty... Yeah, he's got a 60th birthday coming up.
That's crazy.
Wow. He's got a lot of energy still for a 57-year-old.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Wow.
That's the worst call of the week. Him even flirting with the idea of fighting LeBron James. Good luck with that. 803-0550 is the phone number. CJ Vogel from On Texas Longhorns is going to join us at 8:30. Going to get the scoop on two of my favorite ideas for the Bills, maybe more so in round 2, but there's 2 speed receivers from Texas that have both talked about talking with the Bills. Isaiah Bond was reportedly on a visit with the Bills this week. We'll bring on CJ to get the scoop on 2 of the top receivers in the draft class coming up. Some other draft stuff with him as well. That's at 8:30. Open segment for you, though, if you want to get in. We talked about the Chiefs a lot this last hour and the Bills' specific matchup with them. I don't know. We haven't really spent a lot of time looking back on how the season ended when it comes to what they've just done in the offseason. Got a good question on the Bills and the Chiefs from the chat that I want to get to as well. So, a lot coming your way. Jody Biasi and Nate Geary, this is WGR.
Tonight on home ice, they'll host the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. Pregame starts at 6 with Shope and the Bulldog. You can hear all the action right here on WGR. NFL owners' meetings begin next week down in Florida. The meetings could bring another change to kickoffs in the NFL for the second year in a row. NFL's competition committee officially proposed a plan to move the spot of touchbacks from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line in hopes of creating better kick return numbers. In order for the proposition to pass, 24 of the owners must agree to the change. Newly signed Giants quarterback Russell Wilson had his introductory press conference yesterday with the media where he stated he expects to be the starter for Week 1 of the 2025 season. The Giants still hold the third overall pick, and there's been much speculation on whether or not the team will select a quarterback for the future with that pick. The men's March Madness bracket gets back underway tonight with 4 games in the Sweet 16. First game tips off at 7:09 between number 2 Alabama and number 6 BYU. You can hear that game on our sister station, the Bet 1520. Following the game, you can also listen to number 1 Duke take on number 4 Arizona on the Bet 1520 as well. That game tips off at 9:39. Also in action tonight, number 1 Florida takes on number 4 Maryland at 7:39, and number 3 Texas Tech takes on number 10 Arkansas at 10:09. Coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. Hey, and happy opening day. Baseball gets started today at 3 o'clock between the Brewers and Yankees. Also today, the Blue Jays get going at 3:07 where they'll host the Orioles. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet is celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's funny how people forget sometimes how great of a coach a person is over some tough times. And I think the guy just won a Coach of the Year not too long ago. And sometimes I love the underdog mentality too as well. I think that's kind of been my approach every day of my life. I don't know, maybe being 5'11", I don't know what it is, but a lot of people tell you can't do something. And I love challenges. I love adversity. I love all that stuff.
Russell Wilson, new quarterback of the New York Giants. He did say he expects to start. Didn't sound like he thinks there's going to be a quarterback competition between him and Jameis Winston. Won't Winston find his way to playing like 7 games this year, though, anyway? He always kind of gets in there. And then there was the Schefter report that they're still looking at Shedeur Sanders. So they could have Sanders, Wilson, and Winston all in the same quarterback room. Or at least all in the same competition. I don't know if they would keep all 3 once training camp begins.
Yeah, and like Winston has a cuttable contract, worst case.
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure there's a couple million of that's guaranteed, but they could probably trade him. Someone that would be desperate, too, at quarterback. Good morning. It's Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy's off this week. Nate Geary is in. The Sabres are in action tonight against Pittsburgh. It's opening day in Major League Baseball. The Bisons, by the way, open up tomorrow against Rochester downtown. So that's tomorrow. We'll have Pat Malaccar. We'll get Pat Malaccar on tomorrow to preview the Bison season. 9:30, we're going to talk with Josh Goldberg on the whole league, but also the Blue Jays. They're trying to get a deal done with Vlad Guerrero, it sounds like today, before the games start, because his future's been very much in doubt in Toronto. Former Bison stud, and then has gone on to be great in Toronto and needs a contract, and there's been a lot of rumors about him leaving if they don't get a deal done. So get a little scoop on that coming up at 9:30 on baseball beginning today. We have the over-unders for the league. The Giants, by the way, 4.5 is the over-under. Let's play a little game here. Let's play a little game with the AFC over-unders. Nate, I'm going to have you pick the over-under for every team in the AFC.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's start right at the top. The Bills over-under is 11.5. Did you go over or under?
Over.
Over?
Over.
Even though the schedule's tough?
I like over.
The home schedule is tough. The away schedule... What is the Bills' away schedule this year? I feel like the away schedule is actually not that bad. This year, they have the 3 division teams on the road. They have Pittsburgh on the road. Heard Sal yesterday mention that game could be in Ireland. There's a chance of it. Give me Bills Mafia in Dublin.
If they went to Ireland, I'd have to maybe find my way there.
Yeah, me too. Atlanta on the road, Carolina on the road, Cleveland on the road, and Houston on the road. That's not a tough road schedule.
Yeah.
Your 3 divisions, and then Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Carolina, Cleveland, Houston. I mean,
they could go undefeated on the road.
And maybe that's how
They went undefeated at home last year.
Yeah. That's how you get to your over. They're so good at home.
Yep. You know they're going to win a couple of games that are close at home, but they should get the benefit of the doubt at home. Then
they could go nuts on the road.
There are few true home field advantages left in the NFL, especially now. The Bills feel like they have one of the last remaining ones, like Kansas City, Buffalo, Seattle.
Yeah.
Like those home field advantages still exist.
Baltimore over 11.5. What kind of season's Baltimore in store for? They had DeAndre Hopkins as their big ad in the offseason. Under. Division being a little stronger.
Division stronger. They won.
Well, at least one team in their division being stronger.
They won,
I think,
2 one-score games against the Bengals that could have really gone the other way last year.
One of those was not just one-score games, an overtime game, and a game where Cincinnati went for 2 down 1 to win the game at the end, and they didn't get it.
Where did we hear that before?
Yeah. Chiefs at 11.5. I would go under on this.
I'm going to take over.
You're going to go over?
I'm going to go over.
I would go under. 11.5. They're going to go 10-7 this year. And then beat the Bills again. It's going to be infuriating. Bengals at 10.5.
Under.
Okay. Chargers at 10.5. Is that surprising to you that the Bengals number is the same as the Chargers over-under? Chargers and Bengals, the same by this, one number here. Level of expectation is the exact same. The Chargers coming off a horrific playoff loss.
Yeah.
Just 2, what did Herbert have? 3 interceptions on the season, and then he had 4 in the playoff game?
Yeah.
Chargers are the Charger.
You said theirs is 10.5?
Theirs the same as the Bengals, 10.5.
I'll take the under.
Man, if they're not, you've got the Chiefs winning the division by like 3 games again. If the Chargers are never going to put it together,
you think that it's really the Chargers and nobody else? Because I think Denver could be the team in that division that gives them the biggest.
Well, let's get to them next. They're 9.5.
Over.
You would go over on Denver. You think they'll finish second in the division?
I think they'll finish second. I think they're going to give the Chiefs everything they can handle. I mean, they did last year in the regular season game. They beat them when it didn't matter, but it was a walk-off field goal after they fumbled the damn ball, right? Or was that a different game? There were so many absurd endings to Chiefs games. They all kind of blend together.
That was
a different game. Who fumbled? Oh, that was the Raiders game.
No, the Denver game. You're looking for the Denver game? The Denver game is they have a 30-yard field goal at the end to win it, and it gets blocked.
Yes, that's what it was.
That honestly was the craziest of any of the lucky Chief moments of the year. I'm not saying that was like the
Raiders being in the red zone.
Yeah, okay, right.
And then fumbling.
I think
feels
you're right,
worse
because that is all on the Raiders. Like the Chiefs didn't do anything to make that happen. At least on the blocked field goal, it's okay. The Chief guy ran over the Denver guard. Forgot the name of the Denver guard. He's got pancaked on his back to get the field goal blocked. Denver's at 9.5. Houston at 9.5. I am low on Houston this year. I would go under.
I am
on
too.
Houston.
I will take. I think they look like an easy regression candidate because of how bad their offensive line was, and then they dismantled it and have not done anything to.
Right. Explain to me their offseason. They're
trading away your best offensive lineman.
Right, when that was your biggest problem.
Yep.
Right? It's kind of like the Chiefs in that way. But Tunsil, I think, Tunsil's also a real tackle. Thuney was playing out of position. They added Trent Brown on a 1-year deal. They added Cam Robinson on a 1-year deal. They added Laken Tomlinson on a 1-year deal. All low money.
Good. Don't know what the plan is there, but I feel like they could easily. They regressed last year. I think there's a good chance they regress again.
AFC South never going to change. Steelers at 8.5. Under.
No, I'll take the over.
Come on.
They're going to win 9 games no matter what.
We should just bet that one straight up. Then.
They're going to win 9 games no matter what. That's what they do.
Not no matter what. It's going to end. It's going to happen. It happened to Belichick. It's going to happen to Tomlin.
History suggests otherwise, unfortunately.
Eventually, it's going to happen. You're saying that assuming Rodgers will be the quarterback, I'm guessing? Okay.
Yep.
If it's Rudolph, would you still think the same thing?
Yep.
Really?
If Duck Hodges was their quarterback, I'd think they'd still find a way to 9 wins.
Is there a quarterback I could put in front of him as their starter where he wouldn't say that? It's like within
Mitch
somewhat
Trubisky.
Reality. Trubisky. There you go. Well, he was their quarterback.
Yeah, it didn't go well.
They found their way to 9 wins. All right, Pittsburgh 8.5. Dolphins at 8.5.
Over.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Here's why I ask you, what do you like about Miami?
It's not really about liking Miami.
I just think Tua's going to get hurt again.
Okay.
Because it happens every year.
I mean, if that happens, then yeah. That's...
1 year, he stayed healthy. Just play the law of averages.
Yeah, I like over simply because I think them and the Jets, they've both found ways to be kind of underrated now.
What do you think McDaniel needs to do to keep his job? Like, does he keep his job if they squeak into the playoffs and gets bounced in the first round? Is he there? Is
Probably,
he staying?
yeah.
Okay, what if they win 9 and just miss?
I think he'd be done.
Okay, so it's got to be. It's just
I think it's
playoffs
playoffs or bust. Yeah.
Okay.
But I also kind of think they have to win a playoff game. They haven't won a playoff game since.
Oh, it's 20 years.
The Bush administration.
They're the
second
only
Bush
team.
administration.
Might be the first Bush
They're
administration.
the only team in the NFL to not win in the 21st century.
What, playoff game?
A playoff game. Even the Jets have won a playoff game.
Miami's last playoff win.
96?
The 2000 wild card.
Pre-9/11.
Indianapolis Colts in overtime.
Because maybe they have one in the 21st
I was in
century.
third grade.
I was
young
one.
Peyton Manning. Jay Fiedler was the quarterback.
Hell yeah. Vibe train.
Look at this game. Who is the coach?
Wanstead,
you're right. Dave Wanstead against Jim Mora.
Hell yes. Vibe factory.
Holy cow. 2000 is the last time they won a playoff game. Miami is 8.5. You're going over. I would go under on Miami. I think they're going to implode this year. Get my list back up here. New England is at 7.5. Is that proper respect? That's the right number, right? That's last year they were like 3.5.
What's the number?
7.5. Like that's okay. You're middle of the road now. You're not the worst team in the league anymore. We like Drake May just enough, but you also haven't done enough. You're too new. You're too new here to get a higher number than that.
I take the under. That'd be a big jump for them.
Yeah.
8 wins would be a big jump. 6 or 7 makes more sense.
I'll go over. Not by much. Like it's going to be 8 and 9 to me. But I do like the roster. I like the roster a lot. Jury's out still on the offensive line. And that could really tank things. But I like May's ability to play against pressure to me is gonna make that a little bit more neutralized.
Okay.
So we'll see. It's Vrabel too, right? Isn't Vrabel kind of Tomlin-esque here, where he's gonna squeak out 8-9 wins? What is his worst season with Tennessee? Did he have like a really bad year? Not that I remember, right? Was there a Mariota year in there that was really bad? Let's see.
Maybe his first year.
Vrabel as a coach went 9 wins, 9 wins, 11 wins, 12 wins, 7 wins, 6 wins. So the last year, I guess.
Yeah.
The last year that he was there where, it all kind of went away. So New England at 7.5. Rest of the AFC. Jaguars at 6.5. I think Jeremy's on the Jaguars this year. It's a sneaky good team.
Jaguars?
Yeah. I'm not really into it. They've changed a lot.
What's the over-under? 7, you said? 7.5?
6.5.
6.5. Okay.
New coach, Liam Cohen, who says Duval very strangely.
Duval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a weird
I
cat.
like the over for them. I think a bounce back's in order. I'm probably buying Trevor Lawrence stock because I think it's probably at its lowest.
Okay.
Yeah, if their offense can be better, I think their defense will. Their defense was okay. Their defense has always sort of been okay. Who does maybe some of this depend on who they end up with in the draft?
Well, who would you have them taken? That's a top 10 pick, isn't it?
It's 5.
5. Okay.
So they get Mason Graham. Does that move the needle for you? They'd have some names on the defensive line. Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Mason Graham. I mean, they'd have some pieces on that defensive line.
To me, like their defense being 11th or being 19th, like to me,
kind of doesn't matter.
It's their offense. Doug Peterson kind of showed that he doesn't really have it as a play caller anymore, and Cohen was really impressive in Tampa. So I do like the offensive skill set. Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, he could be a superstar.
Yeah, he really could. He really could be a superstar.
He looked like he has that potential last year. I mean, he had a big season. Nonetheless, he's going to at least be really good. I like that Diami Brown signing too as a speed receiver. They got a lot of speed.
Yeah, swapping
down
out
the field.
Kirk for Diami Brown, I kind of like.
Yeah,
I kind of like it.
I mean,
So what? No, so now
you've got
you've got. I would think that what they're trying to do is trying to see if they can. They don't really have a true slot though.
That is true. I wonder if they play Thomas out of the slot.
That's what I was just going to say. I wonder if they're trying to look at getting him out of the slot more because vertically, that's probably where they could have a lot of success with him in the vertical game is in the slot.
Right. Almost in the way that Dallas uses CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the two guys they have next to him, Diami Brown, outside speed guy,
Lamb, right?
And then Gabe Davis is only playing on the outside.
He's better than CeeDee Lamb, right?
Who?
Brian Thomas.
No, he's not.
No?
No, that's crazy.
That's
crazy.
Contracts aside.
That's
contracts
a crazy
aside.
Question.
Don't allow contracts.
No, I don't care about contracts.
Okay. If you had both of them on the board today, not fantasy in real life to start your team, who would you rather have? Brian Thomas Jr. or CeeDee Lamb?
How old CeeDee Lamb? To start my team?
If you're
Lamb's
getting
25. I'm taking CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, I'm
not
taking CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee
He had 1,700 yards 2 years ago.
Yep.
4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. No, I want CeeDee Lamb.
I like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot.
I mean, I love Brian Thomas Jr., but Lamb is already a tier 1 receiver in the league.
Totally.
I
think by the end of this year
could be.
He might be a consensus top 4, top 5. That's how high I think of Brian Thomas.
As I do say, 1,700 yards for Lamb. I mean, it was 1,282 was the yardage for Thomas. Thomas had an amazing year.
And how many games did Lawrence end up missing? 5?
Upset of the segment is that the team we've spent the most time on happened to be the Jacksonville Jaguars in this exercise. Do you think, one more on them, do you think the Bills wanted Thomas? Looking back?
Yes.
That's the guy they would have wanted to trade up for?
I think so, yeah.
Man, imagine him with Josh Allen. Could have been awesome. All right, Jaguars at 6.5. I'm going over. Colts at 6.5. Who's their week 1 starter? Does it have to be Richardson? They're talking like Daniel Jones is going to compete for the job. I can't believe that. Jones has played forever in the league. 6 years. How much more does a guy need to prove to you that he's not it? But quarterback competition. Does he win it? Richardson I don't know what to do with Richardson. I love the athlete, but the guy took himself out of a game. And I don't know if you ever recover from that in that building. He's got to work to do it. This offseason, training camp, he's got to show a maturity level. Because it might sound like a little thing, but I feel like that could stick to him. It'll be remembered. It's the first thing I thought of when I thought of Richardson. He's a crazy athlete, big arm. I mean, I like the player. I thought he shouldn't have been benched in the first place for play. Richardson, one thing that I think, this is going back to the early Josh Allen debates, the great debates of like 2018 and 19, where we argued about how important is completion percentage, right? And that's happening a little bit with Richardson right now. Anthony Richardson, worst completion percentage of any starting quarterback in the league last year. 47.7%. He also had a higher yards per attempt than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Which should I care more about? I'm not saying he doesn't have to get more consistent, but you benched a guy who had a higher yards per attempt than Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes had a little bit of a down year, but it was middle of the road of starters. It was fine. Because you know why? He connects on bombs all the time.
He's an impressive vertical thrower.
14.4 yards per completion last year was the highest in the NFL.
It's just as crazy he can't complete an out pass. But man, can that guy throw a beautiful deep ball. He's got J.P. Lossman vibes with his arm talent.
Honestly, with his injury history too a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to go over or under on 6.5 for the Colts?
I'm going to go under.
Okay. Titans at 5.5?
Under.
There's a lot of teams at the bottom here that just... Under on the Titans.
Yeah.
Jets at 5.5?
Over.
Really?
Yeah.
I would be under on that. I think they're going to be bad.
I think they'll be better than they were last year. They'll be less of a bleep show. I think they'll be less of a bleep show. I think they're going to play a ton of one-score games. And I suspect their defense
bounces back
a little bit.
All right. Raiders at 5.5?
Over.
It's interesting. That's an interesting number that it is that low. Because
I think Pete
they
Carroll
added a
accounts
veteran
for
quarterback.
6. I think he accounts for 6. He's the best coach that franchise has had.
Okay, see, Gino would be the bigger reason that I would do it.
Pete Carroll is such a solidifying. Talk about raising floors. He raises their floor immensely. From being maybe the worst team in the league from a floor-wise, I think, to, at minimum, third in their division.
I'm definitely rooting for it to crash and burn.
Really? I don't... Was it because of Brady?
Brady.
All right, that's fair.
Because if they win this year, like if they're a playoff team, they win 10 games.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll, you might be right that Carroll will be a huge reason, like the biggest reason why that happens. He ain't getting the credit for it.
I disagree.
Tom Brady is going to get the credit for it because he's going to make it that way. Brady gets credit for everything, things that he has nothing to do with.
Yeah.
He is absolutely going to get all the credit if they make the playoffs and win 10 games.
That's probably right.
So I want them to win 3. The Raiders. Final one, Cleveland 4.5.
Under. They might win 0 games. I just if they go into the season as is right now with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, they might win 0 games.
Yeah. I mean, I still like the defense, but I wouldn't go over. I'd go under 2. Yeah. All right. That's the AFC picture right now when it comes to the over-under win totals. Again, the Bills are the number 1 team. They're tied with Baltimore and Kansas City at 11.5, but like if you were going to bet it, you have to spend more to get the over on the Bills than you would on Baltimore or Kansas City right now. 803-0550 is the phone number. We're going to talk some draft coming up next. We'll check in with Sal also in the 9 o'clock hour. He's going to be on tomorrow, but get in on the league owners meetings and all the rule changes. We touched on those a little bit earlier, but we'll definitely get more in depth with it with Sal in the 9 o'clock hour. So still got room for your phone calls at 803-0550. Sabres play tonight. Baseball starts today. It's a busy day in the world of sports. The NCAA tournament gets back into it today, so you got everything. Almost a sports equinox.
Sports equinox.
Hockey, basketball, baseball, and we're missing one more. There's golf. We got golf today.
Yes.
The Texas Open?
Houston Open, yeah. Houston Open.
Yep. So Rory's the favorite for today. 803-0550 is the phone number here on WGR.
The Buffalo Sabres are back in action tonight on home ice. They host the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. Pregame starts at 6 for Schopp and the Bulldog. You can hear all the action right here on WGR. NFL owners' meetings get going next week down in Florida. Meetings could bring some changes around the league, including changes to kickoffs for the second year in a row. The NFL's competition committee proposed a plan to move touchbacks back from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line in hopes of creating better kick return numbers. Newly signed New York Giants quarterback Russell Wilson spoke to the media yesterday at his introductory press conference, where he stated he expects to be the starter for the team in Week 1 of the 2025 season. The Giants still hold the third overall pick in this year's draft, and there's much speculation on whether or not the team will select a quarterback for the future. The men's March Madness bracket gets back underway tonight. 4 games in the Sweet 16. You can listen to number 2 Alabama take on number 6 BYU on our sister station, the Bet 1520. That tips off at 7:09. Later tonight, following that game, you can also listen to number 1 Duke take on number 4 Arizona on the Bet 1520. That game tips off at 9:39. Coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. And happy opening day in baseball. Things get going today at 3 o'clock between the Yankees and Brewers. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business.
All aboard the wide receiver train. This year, though, might be okay with round 2. Yes, just saying. Good morning. It's Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy is off this week. Nate Geary hanging out here on WGR. We are under a month away from the NFL draft. That clip of Isaiah Bond, will get more on him and some of the other Texas prospects. I feel like looking at this, there's a really good chance the Bills draft a Longhorn in the first 2 rounds. Bond, by the way, might be here right now. We don't know like exactly when, but we did have Ryan Talbot report yesterday early in the morning that Bond was coming to Buffalo as one of the top 30, pre-draft visits. So we'll see what they end up doing in the draft. CJ Vogel from On Texas Football, College Football Insider, joins us now on the West Her hotline. CJ, it's Joe and Nate. Thanks for taking some time out this morning for us.
Good morning, fellas. Thank you very much for having me on.
So I feel like Texas is kind of perfect to talk about here. The Bills' needs in the draft. I mean, it's defensive tackle, it's corner, wide receiver is on that list. And when you look through the rankings, I mean, there are Texas guys at all 3 positions. So let's start with the receivers. Both guys, speed players, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. What do you think, start here, CJ, what the biggest reason you think that Bond is more viewed as a second-round prospect and Golden is more viewed as a first-round prospect?
Yeah, it's a good question because coming in, it was pretty flipped, right? Bond was a first-round, projected guy, and Golden was more an unknown. He had more yards this past year at Texas than he did previously his 2 years at Houston, and it really took a while for him to take that leap into that wide receiver 1 role. Which really started because of an injury, an ankle injury to Isaiah Bond, which really hampered his ability to get loose, create separation, and show off his speed. Now, what's interesting is you saw the 4.29 for Matthew Golden, and you saw at the time the 4.38 for Isaiah Bond. I would have expected those numbers to have been flipped based off of tape and based off of what we knew about both guys coming in and out of the season. So it's nothing to scoff at from a speed perspective, but really I thought Isaiah Bond played a little bit faster on tape than Matthew Golden did this year. But overall, the ability to create separation and the hands to go up and catch just about anything in his vicinity, that all goes to Matthew Golden there.
Bond, part of that too maybe is him, I think we all remember him saying he was going to break the record or projecting he was going to break the record at the Combine and then ran at the Combine in the 4.4s. So to you, the play speed looks higher for Bond. What about like the overall skill set, the route running, where they line up, outside versus slot? That's one thing for us in particular. like guys that play primarily in the slot, maybe a little bit less useful. The Bills have Khalil Shakir. They're pretty much set with that. So it's more who can play on the perimeter, run all the routes, and also give you that speed at the same time.
Yeah, if you're looking for a guy that just plays on the outside, I do think Isaiah Bond fits that a little bit better. His route tree that was used at Texas more so was for that, right? You had your 15-yard stops, your verts, some of those screens that Texas relied on pretty heavily. All of those fit exactly what Isaiah Bond was really good at. Now, I think Matthew Golden, comparatively, has a broader route tree. I think that, again, his ability to create separation on digs and outs is just a little bit quicker, right? He's more quick than fast, which, again, was so surprising why he ran that 4.29 at the Combine, because the quickness is what I think separated him more than anything beyond just that straight-line speed. So I do think Bond fits that outside, quote-unquote, wide receiver just a little bit better than a Golden, who I think Texas deployed all over the field very well in 2024.
So to wrap on those two, do you feel like then, like as we kind of go through from the Bills' perspective and what they need, might be a better idea for them to wait until round 2 if Bond is there rather than go for Golden in round 1? They might even, CJ, have to trade up. I've been seeing, their mock drafts, but some of these things have Golden now going like 15th or middle of the first round.
Yeah, I think Golden, you talked about buy low, sell high. This is probably the highest that Matthew Golden's stock has ever been, when it comes to coming into the draft. And, there are certainly some conversations about, if either Texas team will end up with a Matthew Golden. And trust me, I hear that all the time being down here in Austin. Fans of both teams are saying, this is a guy that they would love to have to their franchise. But I see it as this. Isaiah Bond coming into this 2024 season, again, was a number 1 first-round projected guy up there with Luther Burden, with Ted McMillan. Injury really derailed his season. That Oklahoma game was Game 6 for the Longhorns. And when you look back at the final 8 weeks of the season, those final 8 games for Texas, his production dropped significantly. But, what can you do as a speed guy when you got a bum wheel, right? So for Isaiah Bond, again, to go out in Indianapolis and post the top or the fastest mile per hour rate of any wide receiver in the NFL Combine, I think that alone speaks more to his top-end speed than what that 40 indicated.
Yeah, like the functional speed. It's something we talked a lot about last year when the Bills drafted Keon Coleman, right? Like he runs one of the fastest, gauntlet drill, because it's more functional speed than it is, stopwatch speed. But, in comparing, listen, Texas the last 2 seasons with Quinn Ewers at quarterback, basically going to end up having, presumably, 4 top 60 picks, 2 in each of the last 2 years. And when you look at someone like Xavier Worthy, who, obviously there'll be connections between him and the Bills forever because they end up trading back and Kansas City moves up and takes Worthy, sort of how he ended his season on a high in the NFL. I think there will be a desire to compare A.D. Mitchell and Golden and Bond and Worthy. And do you find those to be worthwhile comparisons as a prospect worthy, specifically with Isaiah Bond? How similar are their game styles? Obviously, I think Bond is a little bit bigger, not by much, but a little bit bigger. Like, how comparative are those, kind of players in back-to-back drafts for Texas?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good question, of course, because you see the 4.2s for Golden and Worthy. Worthy, for me, was a little bit more of a straight-line guy at Texas. His ability to just, start, stop, and go. Texas used him pretty well on end-arounds and stuff in the backfield as well. For Golden, again, it's that quickness in his routes, his cutting ability that I think separated him from the rest of this group. Now, I think actually Adonai Mitchell was probably the better route runner between he and Xavier Worthy last year. You can talk separation numbers, et cetera. I actually think A.D. Mitchell was that guy that is in that conversation at the peak of his routes when it comes to cutting, when it comes to breaking, when it comes to just finding ways to separate from man-to-man coverage. Adonai Mitchell and Matthew Golden might be a little little bit more similar. And then I see Isaiah Bond and Xavier Worthy a little closely as well, in the sense that the way that they were used, a lot of that was straight line, a lot of that was, cross, or something that you didn't necessarily need that immediate cutting ability for. And I think that's something that resonates in their game a little bit closer than the conversation about Adonai Mitchell and Matthew Golden.
And the funny thing about Mitchell, too, is if you look even in his rookie season, he has top 10 separation numbers and limited playing time, and a quarterback that
the ball was just 5 yards over his head.
Yeah, could not find him.
Yeah. To get to corner, CJ Vogel with us covering the Texas Longhorns. The Bills, another need, probably their biggest need, is corner. Jahdae Barron expected to go in the first round, one of the first few corners. How high a level of corner prospect are we talking with Barron?
Texas for years has kind of toted that BBU claim, and it's been a while since they've had a guy like Jahdae that's gone out there and won the Thorpe and been an All-American. I've said this since maybe middle of season, and just having listened to Jahdae and post-game pressers and those Monday press conferences as well, wherever he ends up, he's going to be given a key to the city within 3 years. And I don't mean that just off the sense of his gameplay or what he does on the field, but the way that he conducts himself off the field, his charisma in the locker room, he's going to become a fan favorite. And I think that that's something that will help his draft stock. And obviously you'd like to see the play on the field be the reason why he goes where he goes, but he does everything else so well, right? He's a guy that you want to represent your franchise or your university. And of course he's a darn good quarterback, right? He had 5 interceptions this year. He only allowed 8 yards the entire season in man-on-man coverage per PFF. So take that for what you want, but that's a pretty darn good mark in my eyes. And of course, to win the Thorpe Award over some really talented cornerbacks and safeties in this class, it really speaks to who he is and how he goes about his work ethic. And again, this was the guy last year that was getting 4th-round grades, right? His decision to come back to Texas, to work a little bit more on his craft, to put in that extra work to look, he's really good friends with Xavier Worthy, and to see him go in the first round, to have the success that he had this past year in Kansas City, I think that was a big driving factor for why he was able to come in, put so much work into his game, and take it to a level that I don't think really anybody was expecting when it comes to a first-round lock and the Thorpe Award in his closet. That's a heck of an achievement, and again, I think he's going to be a great fit for wherever he ends up.
Last one for the Bills' perspective here. One other need, of course, is defensive tackle. They have 2 picks at the end of the second round, and you see Alfred Collins mocked there a lot, defensive tackle from Texas. What's the story on Collins?
Yeah, Big AC is a fun one. He's 6'5" and some change, 330 pounds. Look, he moves very well. I know that some of those explosive numbers from the combine might not indicate a great athlete, but this was a 5-star athlete coming out of high school at Bastrop. He's got a tremendous first step, and I think that's shown on tape. One thing with Alfred is he's also super strong. The question is, how much more does he have to his bag other than using that strength and speed to his repertoire? Of course, I actually had this conversation with Alfred a few years ago. How can you improve? And he said, look, I've got to get my hands right. I got to be able to shed blocks. I got to be able to win off of pass moves alone. I can't just use my size as something that gets me past some of these college offensive linemen. And obviously at the NFL, that's going to be something that is even tougher, right? When it comes to the best interior offensive linemen in the country. So I view Alfred as a super athletic guy that is very disruptive when it comes to getting towards the backfield. My big question is, how much can you rely on him on a down after down after down approach? Of course, 3 downs is kind of the conversation when it comes to interior guys, but Alfred, again, great run stopper, and then, of course, can get hands up and get that big paw up there to stop passes whenever he's not after the quarterback. But I think he's going to be an end of round 2 guy, maybe early round 3.
Yeah, maybe sounds like someone that first and second downs, and if you got like a 3rd and long, he's coming off the field for like a more of a penetrator, more maybe even defense. Like the Bills used Rousseau inside sometimes, so a defensive end of sorts. Finally, we'll let you go on this, CJ. How high are the expectations for Arch Manning? this year at Texas. I've got a friend who's a Giants fan who just wants them to tank until he comes to the NFL. We're finally going to get to see him this year, right?
You sure will get to see him this year, and you might have to tell your Giants buddy that it might be a couple years before you get to see his name in the NFL draft. The expectation is two years at Texas on the field, despite what might happen in 2025, regardless of what he does or where this team goes. I think 2 seasons is going to be the minimum for here in Austin.
All right, it'll be fun to watch. CJ Vogel from On Texas Football. Thanks for the insight, CJ. Great stuff, and enjoy the spring game, college football season coming up.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you very much. Enjoy draft season.
Thank you. The CJ Vogel, by the way, if you do want to follow his stuff on Twitter, at CJ Vogel _OTF on a couple of Texas receivers. Following that conversation, I'm team Isaiah Bond in round 2 over Matthew Golden in round 1.
I am right there with you. I'm starting to get on the train. There's a couple of names that I'm starting to like more and more for this, specifically like second, third, maybe even fourth round. But like to me, I feel like the speed guy is needed. So like Bond makes a ton of sense in the second round. Kyle Williams is a name that I keep sort of going back to. I mean, what he did at the Senior Bowl, a lot of guys that were at the Senior Bowl raved about him in the era of, quote unquote, like TikTok route running. He was the one out there doing
TikTok route running.
Yeah, like, the nonsense you see in like 7-on-7 and 1-on-1 where these guys like, doing like 9 moves. So like that's ever going to happen in an actual game. He has like real legit. Yeah. He dominated the Senior Bowl. Like that's not a play. That might be a fourth rounder.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Washington State, Kyle Williams, Isaiah Bond. Give me a fast guy.
We'll hit a break here. But as he was describing Jahdae Barron, by the way, do you know who I was thinking of the whole time? Tre'Davious White. Sounded like he was describing Tre'Davious White.
It's a lot of people talking about him playing slot in the NFL, though.
Don't love that.
Yeah.
803-0550 is the phone number. It is Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy off. Nate is in. When we come back, building a better strategy for the Sabres. They play the Penguins tonight. And we'll come up with something. There's a lot of good ideas you could toss around. New embedded, by the way, for the Sabres to get into, too. Stay tuned. Tomorrow is opening day for the Buffalo Bisons. Callers 5 and 6 right now win a pair of tickets, 4-pack of tickets, to the Bisons opening day game against the Rochester Red Wings. That's a 2:05 first pitch tomorrow. Visit bisons.com for tickets. Sabres and Penguins tonight. It's time for Building a Better Strategy, brought to you by SalesRebel.ai. Build better strategies. Visit SalesRebel.ai today to learn more. My Building a Better Strategy for the Sabres is I'd like to see Isaac Rosen play in the top 6 for the rest of the season. The games don't matter.
They do not.
He is 22.
Time to see him more than like 6-7 minutes a night on a checking line.
Yeah, he was drafted...
It is weird.
4 years ago now.
He hasn't even really gotten a legitimate look.
He is leading the AHL in like multiple categories. He's in their MVP race.
Yep.
Leading the Amherst. He's 22, and he never plays more than 10 minutes when he comes up here because he's always just on the fourth line.
Yep.
But he's a scorer, so why not just get a look at it? That would be my better strategy. Just find out if there's anything there. That's it. Because I don't want to be hearing about him at 23 going into next year. Maybe they have something here. Those guys at 23 first-round picks.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen by now, it's probably not happening.
Right. So get a look at it, see if there's anything there. He played 8 minutes the other night against Ottawa.
Yeah. I mean, what's even the point?
I don't know.
Just run 7 defensemen if that's the case.
Right. You can't even get a tell on him. He's played 12 NHL games, and there's no way of knowing what he's done in those games.
What are you getting with him and Krebs and Mallenstein? I mean, what do you get?
Right.
By the way, quickly, 6 years ago today is when Alabama hired Nate Oates from University of Buffalo.
It's been 6 years?
6 years. Since that beautiful NCAA tournament run.
How long have I been doing this? I remember hosting the Nightcap, talking about Nate Oates making UB into the Eastern version of Gonzaga.
Yeah.
That did not happen.
It did not happen.
I think everyone does that, don't they?
Yep.
Doesn't every mid-major go, we could be the next Gonzaga?
Because our coach is good, and then that coach leaves immediately.
Yeah, there's no next Gonzaga.
Nah. Gonzaga's a...
Gonzaga.
Pie,
I always do that.
Pie in the sky.
Tournament starts back up tonight. All power conferences.
Yay.
That's it. No mid-majors. 803-0550 is the phone number. We'll talk with Sal coming up next. Get into some of the league owner stuff, the rule changes, the touchback, and the tush push, and no nose wiping on celebrations. A lot to get to with Sal when we come back here on WGR.
Back in action tonight on home ice. They'll host the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. Pre-game will start at 6 with Shope and the Bulldog. You can hear all the action right here on WGR. The NFL owners' meetings begin next week down in Florida. The meetings could bring a change to kickoffs in the NFL for a second year in a row. The NFL's competition committee officially proposed a plan to move the spot of touchbacks from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line in hopes of creating better kick return numbers. Newly signed New York Giants quarterback Russell Wilson had his introductory press conference yesterday. He stated that he expects to be the starter for the team in Week 1 of the 2025 season. He joins the quarterback room with Jameis Winston, who signed over the weekend with the Giants, and Tommy DeVito as well. The Giants still hold the third overall pick in this year's draft, and there is much speculation on whether or not they will select a quarterback for the future. Men's March Madness gets back underway tonight with 4 games in the Sweet 16. The first of the night tips off at 7:09 between number 2 Alabama and number 6 BYU. You can hear that game on our sister station, the Bet 1520. Following that game, you can also listen to number 1 Duke take on number 4 Arizona on the Bet 1520 as well. That game tips off at 9:39. Also in action tonight, number 1 Florida takes on number 4 Maryland at 7:39, and number 3 Texas Tech takes on number 10 Arkansas at 10:09 for the last game of the night. Coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. And happy opening day in baseball. The Yankees and Brewers get things going today at 3 o'clock. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
What's up, everybody? Good morning. It's DeMar Hamlin here from the Buffalo Bills with an early Christmas present. We have big news today. Hallmark Channel and the NFL have selected the Buffalo Bills in the 2025 Countdown to Christmas movie draft. Stay tuned this holiday season for the all-new Hallmark Channel movie Holiday Touchdown, A Bills Love Story. We're so excited to celebrate our team, our fans, and shout out to Bills Mafia and our shared love for football and Hallmark Christmas movies. Go Bills. Let's go.
DeMar Hamlin announcing that there will be a sequel to Holiday Touchdown. Instead of it being a Chiefs love story this time, though, it's going to be a Bills love story. How do we feel about this?
Yeah.
I have confused emotions.
As someone that watched the movie, I don't want to see another one.
You didn't watch the movie. You watched
Yes, I
the
did.
wrong one, didn't you?
No, I watched the Hallmark one.
Oh, okay.
You wanted me to watch a different one, a Lifetime one, I think it was.
Oh, there were two. Right, there were 2 Chief Christmas movies last year.
Which is, of course, way worse than just one.
Yeah. We'll see if the Bills get 2. The Bills are also kind of playing second fiddle here, right? Like, you're not real, I guess, whatever. Is this going to be like a Josh Allen, Haley Steinfeld inspired love story? That's what everyone thought the Chief one was, right? Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Bills love story, Holiday Touchdown. Sal Capaccio now on the Western Hotline for this breaking story. Morning, Sal.
I mean, I was going to come on and talk some NFL rule stuff, and then this happened, and you have now John Tortorella is out in Philly.
John Tortorella. So he's stepping down, I guess, in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's stepping down, so whatever that is, I mean, does that mean that it was really his decision? I don't know. It's being portrayed that way, but either way, we got that. And opening day, baseball, Nate's Royals are taking on the Guardians today, right? The Yankees are taking on the Brewers.
Nice. The Tortorella thing, it's just weird timing, right? Like, the season's almost over. They're almost at the bottom of the standings. It's not him being fired. It's him stepping down. Like, I don't know. It's just odd that it wouldn't wait till after the year. Maybe he learned or found out somehow, like, they were going to move on, and he said, well, I'm just going to do it myself then. I don't know.
Do you think this is because they want to just get a head start on hiring a coach? Like, maybe. You do it now before other teams start firing their coach, right? I know in football this happens sometimes, but I just wonder if that's part of the reason as well.
Sure, get a jump start on the competition. Especially if there's someone out there now that they've got their eye on and they want to get ahead of it. So that could be right. That could be right. Or if they want to get a look at one of their own guys. So Sal we did bring on right for the rule stuff, though, because there's a lot to get to on that front. The league's competition committee and how it works, Sal, like the competition committee and suggesting rules to the owners. And I heard you on this a little bit yesterday that it's not at all just like if the competition committee recommends it that they're going to pass it. There's oftentimes, a lot of times, that they do not.
That's right. It has to be approved by 75% of the clubs to be adopted. That's 24 out of the 32 owners. And sometimes the competition committee does bring a rule that does not pass. Sometimes it doesn't even get voted on, to be honest with you. Like they'll literally, they just kind of don't want to waste time. So if there's really no movement to know that it's going to pass, they might just kill it right there on the floor, essentially, like a bill, right? And say, okay, we're not going to do this. So that can happen, or it could go to a vote and it just doesn't turn out. And that has happened with the 4th down and 15 play, you know what I mean? The 4th and 20, however they've proposed that over the years. Honestly, maybe that was a team that proposed it, not the competition committee. Maybe that's why I'm thinking it got voted down. Generally, competition committee stuff does kind of get through, but it doesn't have to. You do have debates, and ultimately owners bring up sometimes good points and say, well, are we thinking about this? Are we thinking about that? And then the competition committee goes back and thinks about it, and they have debates about it, and then ultimately it doesn't pass, but we'll see where all these go today. Or next week, I should say.
Yeah, so 2 rules that were added to the docket for the meetings, which, are next week. They start on the 30th. What is that? Is that Sunday? Sunday they start? But next week. Yeah, but next week it'll be the meat of it. So the kickoff rule, where the touchback would be moved to the 35-yard line, and also, the onside kicks would be declared at any time. This kind of feels like one cell that might pass, right? Because they're trying to get more kickoffs, and I think this probably would succeed at kickoff returns. It would succeed at that.
Yes. So the data that the league has shared. Okay. Now you can think about this, challenge it, whatever, but you can kind of spin it in different ways. The data that the league has shared has basically said that the concussion rate was down last year overall, and on the dynamic kickoff. Down 43% from the previous couple of years that they added, from 21 through 23. And the fewest, I'm going to read this, lower extremity strains on the play since at least 2018. Plus, they did have more kickoffs. So, that returns. So, that's what they want. The idea here is, again, this goes back to last year. It's weird. I tweeted out some of this stuff, and people are like, what are they doing? This is not going to help. I mean, that's what this should not be a shock to anyone. They did this last year. They made the dynamic kickoff last year and said, we're going to put the return, the touchback at the 25-yard line. We want more returns. We want the landing zone, the 30-yard line. Sorry, you want the landing zone to count here. You got to catch it. And guys, the biggest reason is having these guys closer in proximity, the kickoff team, the kick return team. This should not be a shock to anybody. The data from the league says they had more returns and they had less injuries. But they want more returns. Yeah. And they said it still wasn't good enough. So let's put it at the 35-yard line, the touchback. So what are you going to get now? You're going to get teams saying, we do not want to have a touchback. We don't want you to start at your 35-yard line because that's like 2 plays you're in field goal range. So guess what? We're going to kick it. We're going to force you to return it. They're going to keep the alignment the same with a few tweaks, which we can get into, but not a big deal right now. And they're saying that will also help with the concussion rate, or at least keep it the same, if not reduce it.
Right, because essentially what seemed to happen with not every team, Sal, but a lot of instances last year was, the difference between the average kick return and the touch where you get the touchback is only a couple of yards. So why take the risk of anything, a return for a touchdown? Whereas now, if we're talking about like a 10-yard difference on the average, that's a whole set of downs that you'll have to get as an offense that you wouldn't have to if it's a touchback.
It's exactly right. It's exactly why, Joe, some people say, why don't they just move the kicker back? Well, this is the reason, because the intended idea is to get more returns, but you want it to be penal to kick it through the end zone. If you kick it, to the guy from, let's say, you're going to get more returns, but you're not having the biggest difference between that and kicking it through the end zone anyway. They want to make a difference. Hey, you don't kick it through the end zone, you got to have a return here. And that's what they're trying to do. So according to the league, they had a conference call yesterday. Kick returns were up last year. Concussions were down as far as the over. Now, I think the actual number of concussions was about the same, but it's the rate per return that's down, and that's what they're pointing to.
So if this rule does pass, which it sounds like it probably will, Sal, I'm wondering, the value of kick returners, I think, went up I don't know, dramatically last year. But, the Bills had kept a kick returner on their roster all season that didn't really play anywhere else. I mean, he was listed as a corner, but I think it's kind of part of the reason he was inactive towards into the playoffs was because, they wanted to have somebody out there that could play corner if they had to. But like a signing like Laviska Shenault maybe has a little bit even more value now. And was this something maybe GMs and head coaches and special teams coordinators around the league maybe knew was coming, and this move for Shenault to bring in more competition for the return game was kind of a preamble to this?
It's exactly the reason they signed Laviska Shenault. I mean, Brandon Beane basically said that when he was asked about it a couple weeks ago. And Nate, it's not for competition in the return game. It's to add another guy. You're going to put two guys back there.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's not just and look at, maybe he doesn't make the roster because at the end of the day, you only have certain numbers, right? And he's got to compete at wide receiver anyway to find a spot. Laviska Shenault was a proactive move to sign another kick returner because they want to have enough guys back there because they're seeing this coming. And when he was signed, that was, to me, a clear sign that the Bills kind of knew it. It's not just him. It's not just them. Devin Duvernay was signed by the Chicago Bears. They're doing the same thing. There are teams signing kick returners with that specialty because they're saying we're going to have to return kicks this year, so let's get a good kick returner. That doesn't take Brandon Codrington out of the mix. It doesn't remove Brandon Codrington from returning kicks. He is still your main punt returner, but Laviska Shenault has never returned a punt in college or the NFL, so he's not going to be doing that. I still have to figure out, or we're all going to still watch and see how it unfolds with him having a roster spot because you still have to fit him in there somewhere. But that's exactly why they signed Laviska Shenault.
Right, maybe be a depth guy along with the returning being the lead as to why he's here. So that's the kick return rule that's up for debate, Sal, at the owners' meetings. There's the tush push, of course, which we can get to. The other one, though, that I saw that was added yesterday was this expanding the scope of replay, but it kind of seemed confusing. The exact thing that I saw was, quote, specific objective aspects of a play and or address game administration issues when clear and obvious video evidence is present. So it's like almost a word salad of a sentence. I don't know if you have like the integral, like what that means to replay and how it changes. To me, it just means that there's going to be more things that they're going to be putting in the hands of the upstairs official rather than the person on the field.
So basically what's happening is you guys saw last year there were several plays that really made headlines when there was a face mask called and it wasn't, or there was a face mask, it wasn't called. Remember that?
Sam Darnold.
Well,
yeah.
Yep. These are the kinds of plays that now will be able to be picked up. But here's the key point that people are upset about, and I get it. They're not saying, this rule does not say you can throw a flag if an official clearly misses a face mask, okay? But if there is a flag thrown initially on face mask, hitting a defenseless player in the head or neck area, a horse collar tackle, tripping, or roughing or running into the kicker, if a flag is actually thrown, replay assist can now call down and say, yeah, that really wasn't, you need to pick it up. It does not allow replay assist to say, hey, you missed one, you need to call it.
Okay. How do I feel about that? Because it is, in a way, inconsistent. But I guess if I'm going to have it one way, I'd rather have it so that I'm getting less flags, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And because here's why, Joe, I would say, just knowing how the league and these people talk about things, if you start saying we're gonna have, never has there been, I don't think I've ever seen a situation where, and the league has never had a rule where an off-field official could throw a flag on something, right? Like whether it's Sky Judge or whatever. They don't want to open that box. They just don't want to open the box of somebody calling down and saying you need to throw a flag, because where does that end, right? What about holding? Well, guess what? You missed the left tackle holding the guy on that run. Yeah. You can't do that. They don't want that. What they want to do is correct a mistake that was called on the field if it was called a flag.
Couldn't the argument be made that this might generate more flags thrown? Because if you're a referee in these situations, you know that Sky Judge can correct you if you're wrong. So if there's a doubt at all, throw the flag.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory, Nate, and I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, we see sometimes that happens in other sports and even in football with certain calls now where I think we've had talk of, well, they know the Sky Judge can bail them out anyway. But nobody wants that, right? I agree with your theory. There's no doubt. It could lead to that. I don't think any official in the moment is going to be thinking that. I think they're just going to throw it if they see it. And then, because honestly, no official wants to get overturned either, right? I mean, that's just a bad look for them. If they throw a flag and it's shown that, well, that clearly wasn't a flag, they don't want that look on them either. So I don't think that they'll have that in the back of their head.
So one thing I wanted, and I saw a couple of tweets about this, so I'm not sure if it was just people talking about it and a desire to see it, or if it is something that's going to be on the docket, but the eliminating an automatic first down for illegal contact and defensive holding, is that something that is going to be on the docket too? Because that to me is the most obvious rule change to better the game, because too many times you have 3rd and long and whatever, and a ticky-tack holding or illegal contact penalty gets called, and it's 5 yards automatic first down. It's just, to me, that's one that is obviously needed to be changed.
It is going to be voted on. It was actually not the competition committee. It was the Detroit Lions who proposed it, who, by the way, the Detroit Lions led the league in defensive holding last year. Okay, So they proposed this. But I'm going to tell you this, Nate. As I sit here today, I don't think it's going to pass.
Oh, okay.
And there's just, look, this is I understand, and there's certainly an argument to be made for this, which is, why should it be so penal? Why should a guy be penalized and a team be penalized an automatic first down for a 5-yard holding? Well, the reason we'll come back is because, look, in this league, if you see a guy getting beat and a guy just tugs the jersey easily, like, he's going to get beat for a touchdown. So you got to make it more penal, to have that happen. And I believe Warren Sharp actually did some data where he went back and looked how many times on a 3rd and 10 or longer there was actually illegal contact or holding that resulted in a first down. It was less than you think. It does happen sometimes. I'm just saying that I think because this rule has been on the books really since the start of football and the creation of football, because they wanted to make sure that offensive players could have the ability to get to where they need to get to. I just don't see an appetite to change this right now.
Yeah, the counter is that what you would do as a defensive coach, if it's 3rd and 20, is say, oh, this guy's going deep and you're beat, hold him. Hold him, because then there's going to have 3rd and 15. That actually sparks an idea in my mind, Sal. I don't think this would be a cool rule in theory. I think in practice it would be annoying and we would get stupid reviews on this. But make it where if you hold them past the first down marker, then it's a first down.
That's an interesting one.
But if it's
like
before the first down,
make it a spot foul like pass interference.
Yeah, kind of. I don't even know if I need to change the yardage. Like, okay, it's a 5-yard penalty, but if you did it 10 yards past the first down marker, they get the first down. If you did it at the line of scrimmage, then you don't. But again, in practice, that might be annoying because now we're going to get reviews of, was he cross the first down marker on the hold, or was he before? Let's go to instant replay. Yeah, we're getting into all that. So what else is the most interesting here leading into next week? The tush push, but I've heard you say like maybe that it's probably not going to pass this go around.
I just don't think so, but there's just everybody at the combine who was asked about it. There was just too many people who said, it's a play, you have to stop it, right? So, but there are certainly people. I mean, even Sean McDermott, who's on the competition committee, said he has his concerns about the play. And the Bills are very good at it, right? Which is interesting with Josh Allen. But I think Allen did get hurt on it in Kansas City when he hurt his wrist at the end of that half, right? I mean, but it wasn't something that impacted him the rest of the game. But even Sean McDermott has said that. So, and the tush push is basically yes, and the way that they're wording it is you can't make body contact with somebody who's lined up directly behind the snapper after he takes the ball. So that's basically saying you can't push the quarterback forward. That's the tush push. Honestly, for me, it's not even a playing rule. It's an outside the playing rule. It's a bylaw. It's Detroit again. I don't know if this will pass, but it's been brought up. Detroit has proposed that if you win your division, you still make the playoffs, but every team is seeded based on record. So a wild card team that has a better record than the division winner would be ahead of the division winner in the seeding. And if you go back and look, it's easy to see why they proposed this. Look what happened in the NFC last year. In the NFC last year, guys, all 3 wildcard teams had better records than 2 of the division winners. So all 3 wildcard teams had to go on the road while the 2 division winners with lesser records were at home. So the Lions have proposed to change that and just seed it by division, by overall record.
Yeah, I like that one. I hope that passes. We'll see. That's one that hasn't been on the table before yet, right?
No, it hasn't. So, Yeah, we'll see if that happens. There's a couple things with IR that they tweaked last year and to make it permanent with like adding like an extra 2 guys for IR designated return at the end of the year. But these things are things that they did last year, and then they're just basically looking to make them permanent.
Where's the owners' meetings again? It's always Florida, right?
West Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach.
Sale.
This guy.
Text me
You
on the
coming
side.
down, Nate? Bringing your clubs?
Text me on the side. I got some really good courses down there.
There you
West Palm Beach.
I'd love to. Listen, they are amazing courses. In fact, where the owners' meetings are at a place called the Breakers, which is incredible.
Yeah.
There's a course right there, but I'm pretty sure on those days, it's booked up completely with NFL executives and people like that, and also probably incredible amount of money to play that course. I haven't even been able to.
The Breakers, that's stupid expensive. Funny enough, Sale, one of my favorite courses in West Palm is West Palm Par 3. Might be the nicest Par 3 I've ever.
Par 3 course?
It is like, all right, dramatic, but it's like Augusta upkept. It's insanely well kept. Greens are super fast. It's like if you have a group of people, you want to go out and have fun and be competitive. It's like it's right on the water. Yeah, listen, I'll text you. I got some good spots you can get into while you're down there. You should take advantage because, I don't know, buddy, we're looking at a couple weeks before we get on the course when you get back.
There was snow on the ground yesterday.
Yeah.
So you're saying I could just take some irons and leave the driver home and go to this course and play?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Be cheaper to fly that way, too.
Yeah.
No doubt. Hey, real quick, also, I forgot.
Yeah.
One of the interesting ones is attached to the kickoff proposal. It's part of the rule, so it's either all going to be all or nothing and I think this will pass, onside kicks you could declare at any time, not just the fourth quarter. Still have to be trailing, but you could do it at any time in the game. Still can't do a surprise onside based on everything that happens now with the new kickoffs and how the alignment is, but the new rule would also include, it's kind of attached to this rule, which is you could declare an onside kick at any time in the game.
How you feel about the Yankees? Vibes?
I still feel good. I still think they're the best roster in the AL East, but I just don't know if their pitching can hold up. They've no Garrett Cole for the whole year, which sucks.
Yeah.
Louis Heels, the reigning AL Rookie of the Year, he's out for a few months. They still have some decent, they still have a decent rotation, but the back end is going to really be challenged. The bullpen's good. It's very good. So if you can get a lead, but that's going to be interesting. The Yankees are having something unique. Have you guys ever heard of this? The Yankees are going to have a catcher lead off.
Interesting.
Austin Wells. I can't remember last time a catcher let up. The Yankees do not have a traditional, actual, legitimate leadoff hitter. Austin Wells gets on base. He's not the fastest, but you don't need that anymore. Leadoff hitters, we're gone from the days of that particular. There's no more. You don't do the Ricky Henderson thing anymore, right?
Right, where it's
like
a
when
single
we grew
and a
up,
stolen
Vince
base.
Coleman.
It's basically a double every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's just get on base, and that's Austin Wells, who's a catcher. So I just think it's super interesting.
Yeah, catcher leading off for any team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, Austin Wells. He gets on base.
Yes, he does.
All right. Thanks, Al.
You got it.
Norton Automotive Extra Point Show is coming up at 10 o'clock. Speaking of baseball, let's get a little scoop on the AL East. Josh Goldberg up in Toronto on the Blue Jays. They might have a deadline today to sign Vlad Guerrero Jr. There are trade rumors about him or $500 million contract rumors. So we'll get a little baseball in as it is opening day in Major League Baseball. The Bisons open up tomorrow at 2:05 against the Red Wings. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But stay tuned. Some baseball talk on the way here on WGR.
You got a diamond. And that's not
all right, baseball season is back. 3 o'clock today for the first pitches, including, so I think Yankees and Brewers by 2 minutes is going to be the first pitch today at 3:05. Orioles and Blue Jays at 3:07. Sal gave us a little bit of the scoop on the Yankees. We'll talk some Bisons tomorrow as their opening day comes. And how about a little on Toronto? Josh Goldberg up in Toronto, the DFA podcast, the score on the Blue Jays, now on the Wester hotline. Josh, it's Joe and Nate in Buffalo. Thanks for hopping on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So what's the biggest storyline going into opening day for the Jays? Is it just whether Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to sign or not?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got 5.5 hours until first pitch, and he remains unsigned. So odds are it's not going to happen. And generally speaking in baseball, once the season starts and you're that close to free agency, the likelihood of a contract extension in season is very low. So it's basically play it out and take your chances and see what happens. Maybe you can pull an Aaron Judge and re-sign him if he has a great year in free agency. But your odds of keeping the player go way down. So, that's going to hang over the team all year, I think. That's going to be the prevailing storyline all season long. And good, bad, or otherwise, that's really going to be the talking point in the market. Nationally, it's going to be the thing that follows the team all season.
You say that as though you feel at this moment, correct me if I'm wrong, that he won't sign by today?
I'd be very, very surprised, yeah.
Okay. So then maybe it doesn't sound like they're close. I mean, I've seen there were tweets about like $500+ million, $550 million. What do you think it is? Is it money? Is it his desire to stay? What do you think is really the big thing there?
I think it's money. Honestly, I think you take somebody like this at face value. He said repeatedly that he wants to remain a Blue Jay and spend his whole career here, and I have no reason to believe that's not the case. But lots of players have said, Mookie Betts said he wanted to be with the Red Sox his entire career, and
right.
They traded him because they didn't want to pay him the contract that he ended up getting from the Dodgers. You want to be somewhere provided you get paid what you feel as though you're worth, and by all accounts, they don't appear to be that close. Honestly, the Blue Jays' offer was more than I thought that they were going to offer him. Like, this front office hasn't really historically been on the record as saying that they're strong believers in Guerrero for whatever reason. He's been inconsistent at times throughout his career offensively, but they were prepared to offer him $400 million or more, which was more than I expected for a first baseman. But he wants at least $500 million, maybe $525, maybe $550, and that's quite a gap to bridge. And it just feels as though they're willing to go to a point, but they're not willing to go to the point that he wants them to go to. And he's taking some risk. If he doesn't have the year that he wants to have, he's going to have a hard time getting what the Blue Jays were prepared to offer him in free agency. So there's risk all around, but once you get this close to playing it out, as a player, there's a lot to be said about going to market and having 29 other teams, kind of shower you with praise and make an offer that the Blue Jays might not be prepared to match.
So, if the Blue Jays, it sounds like you feel pretty confident this is not something that ends up getting done now, and with the likelihood of that extension happening once the season starts, I don't know, it's hard to look into the future when you've got the present literally starting today. But what happens then if Toronto can't keep a player like Guerrero that's homegrown and the history with his dad playing in Canada? What's then next for Toronto?
It's a really good question, and this is such a weird season because the expectations aren't particularly high. There's not a lot of buzz in town about the team, the least that there's been in several years. And that's what happens when you finish in the basement of the division for the first time in a decade. And this era that was supposed to be a real throwback of homegrown talent and contention. They've won 0 playoff games. They've taken a step backwards. And the two players that were supposed to be the linchpins of the team, Guerrero and Bichette, are both looking likely to not be here next year. And maybe something changes, but it's a really odd spot to be in. You would have figured at least one of them would have been signed, and that hasn't been the case. And I don't know what things look like 12 months from now. The history over the past few years has been coming up short in pursuit of star players. Obviously, there was Ohtani. They were in on Soto. Who knows how close they got, but they didn't land either player. And at some point, that kind of follows you around. You get close on stars, but you can't sign them, and losing to all-star level talents for nothing other than whether they walk in free agency for compensation draft picks, or if you trade them at the deadline, if you're out of it, not really that big of a haul because they'd both be rentals. I don't know how that looks to players that are free agents that might consider Toronto, but the perception has always been that you've had to overpay for players. Look at what happened with George Springer. They had to go to a 6th year to get that deal done, and now they're kind of paying the consequences with a couple of years left. He's trending in a bad direction. So, the franchise feels in a really tenuous position right now, and this feels like a real make-or-break season, and the odds of it making are lower than the odds of it breaking. So, fans are understandably not optimistic and feeling pretty jaded, and it's up to the players to outperform expectations and force management's hand, and maybe you have a playoff run in you this year, and maybe things break right as opposed to the way that they've broken over the past couple of seasons.
And let me ask you just from a state of baseball perspective, because as a fan base, we're so close to the board. I mean, I'm going to see, a game or two pretty much every year. It's a great little trip, and it's fun, and you get to watch, Major League Baseball close to home. I'm just wondering, because it sort of feels like from afar, obviously, Buffalo doesn't have a Major League Baseball team, but the state of Major League Baseball with, I don't know, the Dodgers and kind of just everybody else, does it feel worse maybe to be a team that's in the middle of Major League Baseball where you have the money, an owner that's willing to spend the money, maybe not all of the money and can't compete with what the Dodgers are doing, but where you have a team like Pittsburgh or a team like Miami who don't spend any money whatsoever? Would you, assess where the Toronto Blue Jays are in the hierarchy of today's Major League Baseball? And is it more torturous to have hope than it is to just have no hope, in Miami, or at least Pittsburgh has Paul Skeens? But I guess you know where I'm going with the question.
Yeah, I still would rather the team that I root for to spend money. The Pirates and the Marlins, it's a desperate situation. It's dire straits. There's really no hope. If you're a Pirates fan, you already have a clock going in your head as far as how many years Paul Skeens has with the team before he's a trade bait or he's moving on in free agency, because that's the history. The Blue Jays, in terms of spending, it's always been kind of cyclical. The last few years, they've been spending more. They've never really been a quote-unquote cheap team, but there were years in the early mid-2000s where they weren't spending much. They have been a top 10 payroll team the last couple of years. It hasn't obviously worked out. The ideal situation is that you spend, but you also have homegrown talent. So the spending is you're addressing holes on the team, but you're not year after year spending in free agency to address multiple holes. You rather have prospects who don't cost as much, and then the free agent moves kind of fill the odd hole here or there, but it's not necessarily the entire identity of your team. And the Blue Jays have had trouble over the past couple of years, particularly on the pitching side of things, in terms of really finding young arms that can be part of the fray for a couple of years. Basically their entire rotation is free agent or trade acquisition. Most of the guys are on the wrong side of 30. Max Scherzer is going to be 41 this year, and that's a real hard way to live in Major League Baseball. If you continually rely on veterans and outside hires, let's call them, in terms of free agent or trade, I just don't know how sustainable that is in terms of a model. The reason the Dodgers have been so successful, obviously they spend, but they have tons of homegrown talent that they either graduate to their Major League team or they use as trade bait to get younger players who can be contributors for several years, and they have prime years ahead of them. And that's what all the other teams are kind of chasing. The Dodgers have the best of both worlds, and the Blue Jays, to me, really are only a free agent team because like they just haven't done a good enough job in terms of making it like this homegrown factory where you're consistently churning out prospects and either having them contribute for you at the major league level or trading them to address the odd hole that you have on the roster. And that's an area that they have a lot of work to do still to be on the same level as some of the other top teams in the league.
Josh Goldberg with us. We'll wrap with this, Josh. Any hope at all? Like, how realistic is, you said there's not a lot of buzz for this team in the city right now. How realistic is it that buzz gets generated, that they're competing for playoff spot? Division seems a little far-fetched more so, right? It would be best case scenario is maybe wild card?
Yeah, I think so. And the reason that there's optimism is because the American League is not particularly good. There's no Dodgers, obviously, in the AL. There's probably not a Braves, a Phillies, a Mets. Like, the National League is much, much deeper in terms of top-end talent. The Yankees lost Juan Soto. Garrett Cole's hurt. Luis Hill's hurt. The Astros lost Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman. Jose Altuve's older. They've got some questions in the rotation. There's not a singular dominant team or anything approaching that in the American League. Yeah, the American League Central, there could be a couple of playoff teams because everyone gets to beat up on the White Sox all year. But as long as you can find a way to be competitive, like I think 85 wins might get you into the playoffs this year. And do I think that the Blue Jays are capable of winning 84, 85, 86 games? Yes, I think some things probably need to go right in order for that to happen. But they're kind of in the mushy middle of American League teams. And there's going to be a lot of teams kind of jockeying for position this year in the American League. Like, there's not really anyone that I think is all that likely to separate themselves. And as long as the Blue Jays can tread water or ideally maybe come out a little bit ahead in the first month of the season because the schedule is really, really tough starting today and then through April, then they might be in a decent position to be a factor in the playoff conversation. And if you get in, we've seen over the past couple of years, the Diamondbacks, the Texas Rangers won the World Series. Like, if you get in, you never know what can happen, and that's what the Blue Jays have to look at this year. Just find a way to stay competitive, maybe sneak in, and then hope that the worm turns in the playoffs after coming up short in 2022 and 2023.
Josh Goldberg from The Score up in Canada. Thanks for the time, Josh. Appreciate it, and enjoy opening day.
Thanks, fellas.
3:07 first pitch today for the Blue Jays and the Orioles. Their over-under win total, 78.5. 10 behind the Yankees.
Yeah.
We're at 88.5.
I would love for them to be good again.
I'm definitely a fair weather Blue Jays fan.
Yeah.
Like, I like them, but I don't really follow it that closely unless they're good, and the only time I can remember it being so good that I was really into it is the Bautista year against the Rangers.
15, they were in the ALCS.
Yeah, 15 and 16.
Who'd they lose to? Royals, baby.
Royals, yeah.
I was at Game 5 of that series. Game 5?
In Toronto?
Yeah. R.A. Dickey versus Chris Young. R.A. at the time was 43. Chris Young was 41.
Shouldn't he have to renounce his fandom because of what the Chiefs have become in Kansas City?
No.
You're rooting alongside Chief fans.
The Royals have been god-awful. Except all but 2 years of my life.
If they got good, you would be high-fiving Chief fans.
If anything, I should be rewarded for being a fan of a team my entire life, only having 2 years of any semblance of relevance.
Listen, they've won a championship. You're getting no whatever from me.
And the reason I can't quit them is they're the only team in my lifetime that I have followed that has won.
Liverpool.
Yeah, but I don't live and die by Liverpool.
I've become more live and die because they're the only one that gives me happiness on a consistent basis.
I've acquired fandom.
The Bills do too, I guess.
In my adulthood, that's not the same as growing up as a fan of something.
That's true.
You know?
Join in when I became a fan of Liverpool in college.
I went to George Brett's Hall of Fame ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the credentials.
I got creds as
All right.
a Royals fan. Yeah.
Extendo Sports, quick check-in on the bullpen when we come back. Stay tuned. All right, a rapid check-in on the chat. We'll do a more thorough check-in tomorrow. They're talking about old restaurants that don't exist anymore.
Chi-Chi's.
Chi-Chi's.
Remember Chi-Chi's?
No.
Oh,
that might be before my time.
It might have been. Thanks. I don't know. That was kind of like a
Johnny Rockets.
Ooh. Oh, at the mall.
Jack Astor's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chi-Chi's was the goat. Chi-Chi's was like...
They still have those in Toronto, though.
Chi-Chi's?
No, Jack Astor's.
Oh.
I don't know if they still have
I doubt they
Chi-Chi's
still have
anywhere.
Chi-Chi's.
No.
There was one in Hamburg back in the day where the old Friendlies... Also
Yeah.
Friendlies.
The chat wants to know what your hat is. It's a golf course.
Yeah, it's Sandpiper.
Sandpiper.
That's where I just played in Santa Barbara over the weekend. It was awesome.
Yeah. Dog of the day tonight. Pittsburgh. It's the Mr. Rogers dog. He must be from Pittsburgh, Mr. Rogers. Anyways.
Little known fact.
Foot-long hot dog topped with pastrami, provolone cheese, French fries, slaw, tomato, and mayo.
Ruined it with the mayo.
The Mr. Rogers dog.
He's from Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
There
which
you
is
go.
just
Latrobe.
outside Pittsburgh.
Like the one bun, I'm looking at a picture. The bun is like the mayo's been spread on the bun, and then the slices of tomato on the side.
Right from
pretty good.
Fries on ruined it.
It's because Pittsburgh, they're known for the sandwiches, which are totally overrated.
They are literally a sandwich
bread,
with French fries.
But they use the white bread.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a cool thing. We use white bread. Don't use white bread.
Yeah.
Use a good
Use
roll.
a roll.
White bread in comparison, I want a PB&J. I'll get some white bread. I don't need my restaurant quality sandwich on Wonder Bread.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for the Northtown Automotive Extra Point Show. Sal Capaccio has UB head coach Pete Lembo coming up at 11 o'clock. Very exciting as that program continues to trend up.
Yeah.
So Pete Lembo coming up at 11. Sean Dolak, by the way, saw some draft buzz from Sam Monson and Marcus Mosher about him. I think we got to keep Sean Dolak a secret.
6th round maybe?
Not at this rate.
Really?
I want the Bills to get him in the 6th round, but at this rate, he wouldn't feel like a 4th round
Would be
pick,
crazy for him to be an early day 3 pick, having not been invited to the combine.
It would be crazy. His RAS score is actually like really high.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Stay tuned for Sal next on WG.